your life work.
The miracle of high-speed wire communication is commonplace today. Lift a telephone receiver and the world is at your fingertips. Speak, and your voice spans oceans and continents with the speed of light.
Just a moment.
I have London for you, sir.
I'll have to
Can
call
you take
you
it
back.
now? I'll
Yes,
connect you.
it will be several minutes.
Calling Bermuda.
Buenos Aires.
Far, sir. Rio de
Calling
Janeiro.
London.
Shall I connect
Just
you?
a moment, please.
Chicago
Here
calling
you are.
London.
Write on a telegraph blank, and your words appear by modern magic on paper thousands of miles away. Yes, it is hard to realize that a century has passed since Samuel Morse invented the telegraph in 1844. Early equipment was crude and handmade, but telegraphy made rapid progress as the years went by and went forward with America's expanding frontiers. Today, Western Union operates a vast network of 2 million miles of wire, furnishing swift, reliable communication. Financial quotations are transmitted from exchanges in key cities to ticker tape receivers in brokers' offices throughout the United States, Cuba, and in Canada. Each year, many millions of money orders, ranging from small sums to thousands of dollars, go over the telegraph wires. Even the nation's time depends upon wire signals from the official Naval Observatory. Day and night, in editorial offices everywhere, teletype machines bring in the news of the world for millions of readers. And every year, more than 200 million telegrams pass through the hands of operators in the traffic department. Here, in this operating room, hundreds of girls receive and transmit messages on batteries of teleprinters and multiplex machines. Those with ability and experience may be promoted to become supervisors on the floor or instructors in the schools which Western Union maintains in many cities. Here, the trainees learn by practicing on actual equipment. Generally, a high school education is desirable. The teleprinter keyboard is similar to a typewriter. As the keys are punched, the distant receiver records each letter on a moving paper tape. An operator removes the tape and gums it to the familiar yellow blanks. The letters NL on this tape identify the message as a night letter. The operator must know how to handle the various classifications, such as day letter, night letter, deferred cable, and special listings. To develop a trainee into a competent operator of the teleprinter and multiplex machines requires from 2 to 3 months. Job opportunities for men are found in the maintenance of all transmission equipment and in the operation of the relay offices. In the carrier system department, trained technicians maintain equipment that transmits hundreds of messages over a single pair of wires. In the experimental laboratories, college-trained research engineers work constantly to find new methods and techniques to provide quicker service. One of these developments is radio beam telegraphy, transmitting 1,040 messages in each direction simultaneously through a series of high towers. Another is the facsimile telegram, whereby a written message is dropped into a transmitter and automatically reproduced by a receiver. Men also are needed at the switchboards which control circuits between offices and in supervision of departments, as well as general executive positions. Typical of these is the traffic manager, who is responsible for the efficient dispatch of all messages through the traffic department. Construction of new branch offices and maintenance of existing buildings and properties is the function of the plant department. New equipment is installed and wired by equipment men and installation experts from this department. Teleprinters and multiplex machines are in constant use and require inspection by trained testing and regulating men so that sudden breakdowns may be avoided. In the commercial department are handled most transactions with the public. In addition, this department employs about 15,000 messengers to pick up and deliver messages. Here, excellent opportunities are provided for young men to acquire business training because of the contacts established while delivering messages. More than 1 million prominent businessmen began their careers as Western Union messengers. The scope of the modern telegraph and cable is worldwide. In America alone, 30,000 branch offices and agencies offer many opportunities for managers, operators, repairmen, and other trained personnel to render efficient service to the public. It's a far cry from present-day telegraph facilities, the early beginnings of the 19th century. Similarly, it's a far cry from the first telephone developed by Alexander Bell in 1875. In the early days, switchboards were operated by men, and service was crude. Today, modern facilities handle more than 100 million calls every 24 hours. These calls flow at the rate of 1,000 per second through a telephone network using enough wire to string a line to the sun more than 90 million miles away. This tremendous system provides job opportunities for 500,000 employees with a wide range of interests and capacities, from outdoor work with field crews to intricate research work in the experimental laboratory. To study these job opportunities, let's imagine that the town of Homeville is to receive a new and larger telephone exchange. First, the engineering department prepares the plans for the buildings and transmission systems and arranges for plant construction. Much of this technical work requires specialized training. Then, skilled craftsmen build lines, install equipment, and maintain it in operating order. After construction is completed, a large number of operators are brought in to staff the switchboard under the guidance of supervisors. These operators have been trained to provide courteous and speedy service. To be an operator, an applicant must have a clear voice, normal hearing, and eyesight. A high school education is an advantage. About 225,000 operators, the most important factor in efficient exchange service, are employed by all companies. They also handle all long-distance and special calls. Even in communities served by dial telephone and automatic systems, many operators are required for information and special service. With the traffic personnel on hand, the new Homeville Exchange is ready for full-scale operation. A clerical force is organized for computing charges for service, preparing and mailing bills, and collecting the money, as well as all other office work. Costs and income are analyzed, and statistics prepared for administrative purposes. Now, the new Homeville Exchange is a unit of the worldwide telephone network. To supply this far-flung network with the latest improvements, research engineers in laboratories constantly experiment to discover new techniques, new materials, and quicker methods of production. The dial telephone and automatic switchboard are among the better-known accomplishments of these skilled engineers. These are men who must possess the creative mind and an everlastingly curious approach. In addition, they are highly trained in scientific and technical fields. While a college education is helpful, a young man or woman can start in the telephone or telegraph industries after graduation from high school and work his or her way up. For technical work, an understanding of mechanical drawing, elementary electricity, physics, and mathematics is very important. All new employees in these industries are trained right on the job or in company schools to perform specific tasks. One of these special jobs is that of the lineman. His duty is to help build new lines and repair those which have been damaged. In the spring and summer, he fights storms of rain and wind. In the winter, there is ice, snow, and freezing gales. Opportunities in all jobs for promotion are plentiful because most companies prefer to advance their own personnel whenever possible. Dependability is an important factor in judging an applicant's aptitude. And just as the public depends on prompt service and communication, the telegraph and telephone companies, in turn, must depend upon reliable, capable employees to keep these nerve systems of our social and economic life functioning properly. Throughout the country, Men and women can find excellent job opportunities in the twin fields of wire communication. These are jobs with stable employment for a wide range of aptitudes and ambitions. If you are the sort of person who finds satisfaction in contributing to the service of other people everywhere, then telephone or telegraph communication may become your life work.
It's busy. It's building. New factories are going up with the assurance they carry of increased prosperity. New homes are under command of new families moving in. It's a barometer of confidence in the future of my town. A confidence that comes from knowing its many advantages. The excellent schools, for example, that serve their children. And the playgrounds available for recreation. Comforting to the happy fathers and mothers who live here and call it home. For my town is home in the pleasantest sense of the word. From the early call of the milkman through a day of normal activities, one gets the feeling that this is a community of good neighbors. The kind of a place you'd like to live in, perhaps grow old in. The kind of a place you'd take pride in, that a great many people take pride in. That's my town. What's making it all tick? What's welding it into a going community? Many things, of course. But one of the most essential factors in its growth is communications. Communications provided by the telephone company and designed, among other things, to give my town the means for transacting business, the means for communicating information, for seeking help, for keeping old friends in touch. Yes, communications and the telephone company that provides them are part of every community in America. The welding force that joins them into a nation of neighborhoods, communicating with each other and with every country of the world. And like my town itself, the telephone company is more than buildings and vehicles, poles and switchboards. It's people. Many people in many places, doing many different jobs. Like the operators who handle telephone calls in my town. Here in the central office, you can feel the pulse of the community. The flashing lights on the switchboard reflect the activity of the town.
Thank you.
It begins to stir in the early hours of the morning.
Your name and number?
It reaches its peak in the rush hours of daytime.
That's Pennsylvania. What place, please? Thank you.
And then settles back for the night. It's the job of the traffic department to handle this changing volume of calls. It has to be ready with enough equipment and enough operators 24 hours a day to meet the customer's demands for service. From the earliest days of her training, every operator learns to think of her job in terms of service to the community.
This is information. May I help you?
Yes, I'd like the new number of Wilson's Meat Market, 1191 Sycamore Street, please.
One moment, please. The number is Right 5 6240.
Right 5 6240. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Operator.
In addition to supplying information,
May I help you?
operators put through all kinds of calls, many of them to out-of-town points near and far.
What is the name of the person?
And for each call they handle, they record the facts needed to accurately bill the customer. The calling number, the place called, and length of the conversation are all noted for use by the accounting department. Sometimes, an operator handles calls that are more urgent than others.
Operator,
Operator, there's been a bad accident. 2 cars head-on. Please get a doctor and an ambulance.
Can you give me the address, please?
It's right outside my house. Old Woods Road near Van Dyke. Hurry, please.
Thank you. We'll get help to you as fast as possible.
Thank you.
The telephone operator's tradition of staying on the job in times of disaster is well known. It's a responsibility they willingly accept and take pride in. Whether the call be emergency or routine, the operator performs a service that is vital to the business and social life of every thriving community in the nation. And that certainly fits my town. It's a community on the go. New shopping areas to keep pace with demand. New construction of all kinds. New factories are going up, creating greater job opportunities with all that they hold for my town and its people. Homes are being built to house the increasing population of workers and their families. They all need communications, and the telephone company has to be ready to supply them. Connecting these new telephones is the job of telephone installers. Each morning they gather at the plant work center to get the day's assignments from their installation supervisor.
Hi, Ted.
Hi.
Your first day, huh?
That's right.
Well, I guess these will keep you busy. Better start with this new installation for John Gardner, 406 Melrose. Say, how did things go down at plant school?
Well, I think I learned a lot, but I'll feel better when this first day is over.
Okay, Ted. I'll stop in later and see how you're getting along.
Right. See ya.
Hi.
Hi. This your house?
Yep. Could you tell me something?
Sure, if I can.
Where does this wire go?
Well, you see, this is telephone wire. And it's going to run from your house to the big cable on top of that pole.
How come it's so big on the pole and so little down here?
That cable's got about 100 wires inside of it, and each one of them connects to a phone in somebody's home or office. The cable then travels from pole to pole until it reaches our central office, where all the little wires are connected to switching equipment. The switching equipment completes the phone calls automatically, or sends them to the operator. Then your phones will be ready for service. That is, they will be as soon as I hook them up.
Well, I'm on my way to the store. So long.
So long, son. I'll have them hooked up by the time you get back.
My, it looks just fine.
Your phones are ready, Mrs. Gardner. Right now, you can call anywhere in the world if you want to.
Good.
And here's your new directory. Your name will appear in the next issue. Meantime, people can find you through information.
Well, thank you. It's so nice to have a telephone.
Hi, Ted.
Hi.
How's it going, boy?
Just fine.
Have any trouble on the job?
Nothing special. But I did have a youngster asking me some questions. And they got me thinking. I install phones, and I know all the steps. Well, that's part of my plant training. But where do the other departments come in? I mean, how do they fit in the act?
Well, I guess that's a natural question for a newcomer, Ted. You're curious, and you should be, about how your job fits in with others in the company. Well, it's kind of a big order, Ted. But I can tell you this. All of us in the telephone company are organized to do just one thing. To give people good telephone service. Now, to do that, and do it right, takes a lot of people with a lot of different skills. Now, I know you've been through this at the plant school, but let's just review it. Say there's a new family, like the Gardners here, moved to my town and want telephone service. Chances are someone in the family goes to the telephone office and puts in an order. Or the order could be telephoned in. Either way, it's handled by one of our service representatives in the commercial department. The service rep makes the customer feel at home, gets the name and address, and how the name is to be listed in the directory. You see, she wants to be sure the customer gets complete telephone service. These days, homes have telephones wherever it's convenient, and that's as it should be. They want their extensions where they'll be of most value. It could be indoors, say the bedroom, or outdoors on a terrace. And we installers can be of help. For instance, you'll find that you have lots of chances to suggest locations for telephones while you're working. It's all part of doing a good job. But let's get back to Mrs. Gardner's request for service, right? Now, once the order is placed, commercial goes right to work on it. First off, a copy of the order with all the details is sent to the plant department. There, a clerk assigns the necessary facilities to do the job, including central office lines and outside equipment. Simultaneously, directory, traffic, and accounting people receive identical copies of the order, so they can prepare their records for the new customer. The plant installation copy of that order comes to me, and I assign the work to you fellows each morning. Now, while you were hooking up the line for Mrs. Gardner's phone, the frame man in the central office was connecting it to the switching equipment. That gives us the circuit that makes it possible for Mrs. Gardner to pick up her phone and call to a friend across town, or across the nation. Well, that's part of the story, Ted. Lots more, of course. But maybe it's given you some little background on how a few of the departments work together.
It sure helps, Jack. But boy, I've got a lot to learn, haven't I?
We've all got a lot to learn, Ted.
You never stop learning in this business. And you understand your own job better when you know how other departments operate. For instance, the commercial department. In addition to servicing new customers such as Mrs. Gardner, also handles the payments of the customer's bills. It has the further responsibility of forwarding the names of new subscribers to the printer for the telephone directory. Every name, address, and number is carefully checked and rechecked for absolute accuracy. It is an exacting task every step of the way. As they say, it's something for the book. The book, in this case, being the most widely used volume of the year. Commercial also collects the money from public telephones that serve my town in stores, factories, transportation centers, and even along the highways. Then there are the telephone salesmen. They have the job of calling on business customers and suggesting the type of telephone system that will best serve the customer's business needs. Directory advertising salesmen also call on business customers and show how Yellow Pages advertising can help them. They plan the kind of layouts that attract buyers and boost sales for the advertiser. The service that telephone people give can be as immediate as right now. It can seek and answer the needs of today. It can plan the needs of tomorrow. And the needs of tomorrow are a service responsibility of the engineers. They have the job of looking ahead, of anticipating how and where my town is going to grow, so the telephone plant can be installed efficiently and economically and be ready when the customer needs it. They decide where telephone cable will be installed, how it will be installed, underground or overhead, and how much of it will be needed. Should it be a 200-pair cable or a 400-pair cable? They have to make sure there's enough equipment in the central office to handle the switching of the calls and plan cables for routing long-distance calls. The engineers also work directly with builders in my town to be sure the telephone service will be ready for customers when they move into their new homes.
Houses run $20,000 to $25,000, and I've got the men out working and figure to have them finished by spring.
In other words, you want to be ready for immediate telephone installation when the houses are completed.
Definitely.
Well, here's the situation, Mr. Palmer. We've got enough feeder cable coming up to this area, but we've still got to get our poles and distribution cables in place for wiring to the houses.
I had no idea there was so much involved.
Well, that's why we appreciate this advance notice. You know, some builders don't include us in their plans, and then the new homeowners have to wait for their telephones.
We don't want that to happen here. We want phones available when our houses go up.
You can count on us. We'll be ready.
In just such fashion, telephone planning and construction work go hand in hand as my town grows and expands. Poles are set. Cables strung. Terminals go in. A communication pattern develops that serves the growing needs of my town. And to give my town the top telephone service it needs and expects takes a lot of money. And that's where accounting comes in. It has to keep track of all the money spent and received so that the company may know where it stands financially. All bills and invoices come to accounting for checking. And they keep all the cost records necessary to prepare the company's financial reports. They have charge of the records that document the location, the type, and the size of telephone plant. And here, too, are prepared the paychecks, an event of never-failing interest to every employee of the company. Accounting also prepares and mails the customer's bills. And there's more to that than the mere say-so. An array of data processing equipment handles a customer's bill, from the first step of listing the customer's name and address, through the successive stages of computing the bill and preparing it for mailing. All over town, telephones are bringing people together.
Bradford's Jewelry? May I speak to Mr. Bradford, please?
Thank you, Mrs. Chase. I'll have the order over in about an hour.
Hi. Going to the dance? My town gym. Sure.
Arnold speaking. Why, hello, Pete. How's things in my town?
Things are pretty good in my town. There's a sense of growing prosperity, growing pride, growing happiness. And the telephone company is a grateful participant. Now, we've seen the parts played by the various operating departments, such as traffic, whose operators handle many of the calls. Plant, which installs and maintains the equipment. Engineering, where all the planning and designing are done. Commercial, which is responsible for many customer services. And finally, accounting, where all the financial records are prepared. Working in support of these operating units are the company's staff departments, such as personnel. Personnel helps to develop and train people in all levels of employment. They handle benefit and pension plans, pleasant reminders of earlier days. They also watch over the health of the employees and arrange for medical attention whenever they need it. An equally important staff section is the legal department, which checks all company contracts and represents the company in court actions. Public relations is also one of the company staff departments. It is largely responsible for keeping the public informed about the company. Its members write news releases for the community newspapers. They also prepare newspaper advertisements that promote various telephone services. And they coordinate activities that deal with radio or television shows. They prepare films and other programs for employee and public groups. And they take part in arranging telephone open houses to which the people of the community are invited. The preparation of the company magazine is also the responsibility of public relations.
Well, Mike, we've had our problems in putting this together, but there have been many excellent comments.
That's the reassuring part of it, Mr. Bolton. Now I think we've reached the point where we need a good story to wrap the whole thing up. Now, I have some ideas I'd like to talk over with you.
Good. Let's see now. The previous articles have covered all phases of our company's operations.
That's correct. And now that we've explained what we do, I think we should show how we fit into the big picture. How we're backed up by AT&T, Western Electric, and the Bell Labs.
AT&T, Western Electric, Bell Telephone Laboratories. Magic names in communications the world over. Let's start with AT&T, the parent company which coordinates the activities and policies of all the companies in the system. Each of the operating companies serves a specific area of the United States and Canada. Each has its own duties and responsibilities, but all work closely with AT&T, which provides advice and assistance whenever needed. Within its own territory, each operating company supplies local and long-distance service. And AT&T, through its Long Lines department, connects each company with the other, uniting them into an integrated system. Long Lines also connects the Bell system with the thousands of independent telephone companies. In effect, it furnishes the links that make nationwide telephone service possible. It builds and operates the radio relay towers that carry calls across the continent. It supervises the laying of underwater cables that enable people to call across the seas. And although many people aren't aware of it, Long Lines also provides the channels that radio and television broadcasters use for their nationwide networks. Western Electric is an equally important partner of the Bell system. It serves as the system's manufacturing arm. And from its plants throughout the country come the millions and millions of telephones that the Bell companies require to serve a growing nation. Western also produces the vast amounts of cable that are needed to interconnect all these telephones. And it builds and installs the dial switching equipment and switchboards used in most central offices. In addition to manufacturing cable and communication equipment, Western also serves as the supplier for the entire Bell system. This means that the companies not only depend on it for their telephone apparatus, but also their other everyday supplies, such as paper clips, typewriter ribbon, and anything else they need. Naturally, Western Electric doesn't make all these things itself. As a matter of fact, most of the items are purchased from more than 33,000 industrial firms across the country. From its warehouses strategically located over the nation, Western Electric is able to rush communications equipment to any stricken area in times of emergency. This equipment is so standardized that crewmen brought from any operating company of the Bell system can use it without further instruction. This assures efficient and rapid restoration of service. Then there is the extremely important part that both Western Electric and the Bell Telephone Laboratories are playing in building the nation's military defense system. Both have had much to do in the design and construction of such projects as the DEW Line and SAGE, and in the development and manufacture of guided missiles. Bell Telephone Laboratories is the research and development partner in the Bell system. It is one of the largest and most experienced industrial laboratories in the world. And it is uniquely qualified to do the design work for both military and civilian communications equipment. Its job is to provide America with the communications of the future, as it has already designed the communications of the present. The laboratory's modern research centers are staffed by scientists and engineers planning years ahead, searching, designing, seeking new knowledge and new understanding. Their aim is to continually develop better tools and equipment to improve telephone service, and to do it in such a way as to assure efficient and economic operation. The achievements of Bell Laboratories researchers are many, ranging through all branches of the communications field. One of their latest advances in telephone progress is leading to new systems of automatically switching telephone calls. These systems are so radical in design that they promise to bring tomorrow's customers a multitude of almost undreamed of services. The tiny device which will make these electronic switching systems possible is the revolutionary transistor. Invented at the laboratories, the transistor brought Bell scientists one of the 2 Nobel Prizes they have won for discoveries in physics. Though it was primarily developed for the betterment of telephone communications, the versatile transistor now appears in a staggering variety of devices and equipment. It has become an important factor in the growth of many new industries, a development that is welcomed by the telephone company. Welcome because it is in the pattern of service that is traditional with every phase of telephone operation. From its very beginning, service has been an inseparable part of the telephone story. As inseparable as the telephone company's long and continuing association with the communities of America. The My Towns everywhere who gave it the opportunity to be of service. They have grown together, these cities and villages of America and their telephone companies. Good friends and good neighbors. They share the responsibilities of good citizenship. Telephone people are proud of those responsibilities, both on the job and as individual citizens, helping their communities in their own ways. They are proud of being part of their town's hopes and joys. Proud being able to further its communications, whatever the hour. Proud and happy to be of service.
Frontiers of Science, a series of information films presented as a public service, documenting the latest developments in medicine and science in the space age.
The future can be found in many places. It can be seen reflected in the eyes of those who are privileged to look at it. Here at this Bell telephone exhibit, it can be found in the shape and form and made from the metal and the wire, the time and the effort of those who are privileged to create it.
Now I'd like to show you what our recent development, the transistor, may do for future telephone service. First, I'm going to throw this switch and turn back the clock to the days before you could talk on the telephone over distances of, say, several hundred miles. Now, I want you all to listen in while I talk on this telephone. Well, I don't think any of you could really understand what I was saying, but let's throw another switch and start coming back to the present. Now you can hear me clearly over a line that represents the same distance.
That's because we now use repeater units containing sound amplifying vacuum tubes to give your voice a boost as it goes across country. Tomorrow we'll still be hearing as well as previously. But look how small this repeater unit is. This smaller, easier to make amplifier was made possible by developing the transistor, a tiny piece of sound amplifying equipment that requires no warm-up time and has an almost indefinite lifespan. Our research people are hard at work finding out what else it may be able to do, where else we may be able to put it to use. This is a business that has always dealt in the future. That's the way Alexander Graham Bell thought of it when the business was started back in 1876.
I was in some haste to invent the telephone, but it has urgent work to do. It talks, sings, and makes you laugh. Quite an abundant work. In my view of the future, the novelty will wear off. The instrument will be behind. It will grow light, convenient, and familiar to every hand. A common tool within the means of every factory, business, every home. And connected to a central switching office which can connect any two subscribers in a matter of seconds. And then I see its lines and poles marching thousands of miles, connecting the head office of every city in the land to the head office of every other city. And then I see, perhaps in the next century, the tiniest, farthest hamlet woven into the wire fabric.
Telephone people must always be looking ahead. It was that way in 1922, when you might have heard this kind of conversation by some engineers who had the job of looking into the future.
Say, Charlie, got a minute?
Sure. What's on your mind?
Take a look at this chart. What do you make of it?
Well, if we keep on adding customers as we have in the past, and if our customers continue to place more and more calls, with the manual equipment we have in now...
We won't be able to give the kind of service our customers expect from us.
I'll make you a little bet that never happens.
Oh, what's the answer?
You know, that's a question telephone people have been asking themselves for years now.
And finding the answer in a type of telephone service that switched calls automatically. It took the time and energy of many telephone people who made use of what was already known about dial switching systems in developing the new equipment and new techniques which would make this better, faster, automatic service a reality for the people they served. The future had been met before it ever arrived. Today, most telephones are dial. There were problems, sure. Dial is a pretty complicated affair. Ask some of the old-timers. They'll tell you.
Glad to. I can still remember how we sweated it out together, drawing circuits for a dial exchange that could be produced not only on a sheet of tracing cloth, but on an assembly line as well. As a production supervisor, I know from experience it's tough enough to make a change on a production line that's already in business, let alone starting from scratch to set up a new one for something we'd never made before. Out in the field, we installation people have always had the problem of installing the new stuff and cutting it into the line without interfering with anyone's service. Our customers like to feel they can use their telephone anytime, and making that possible has always been part of our job.
There was the problem of finding a new spot for the operators who handled the manual switchboards that preceded dial. What happened to the operators? There are thousands more today than there were before dial. More improvements in telephone service mean more calls to handle. More calls mean more jobs to do, and more people to fill those jobs. We've always felt that in the long run, the best equipment we could provide produced the best results, not only for the people we're in business to serve, but for those who help to make that service possible as well. people like Frank Dubrovnik, cable inspector. Mary Jane Holmes, service representative. Eleanor O'Brien, operator. Luke Benson, field representative, each of whom, in his own friendly fashion, made that service a reality on an ever-increasing basis.
If you have any doubts on that score, ask those of us who pick up our mail at RFD boxes. Since the end of the war, well over 1 million of us have had telephones installed.
The vast spaces of America that represent a living for the farmer present a tremendous problem for anyone with the responsibility of providing telephone service in those places. It used to take a lot of construction work, a lot of telephone poles to bring in a telephone to someone in a rural area. We're still using poles today. Since the end of the war, we put up about 2 million of them. The difference being we now use wire that requires 1 pole for support, where 3 were needed before. How come? Ask the men from our research and manufacturing organizations how come. They're the ones who followed the job from an induction furnace where the test ingot was poured, through the prescribed heat treatment, to the making of the test wire that in time became a red-hot snake of slithering steel racing through a Western Electric wire mill, and eventually turned into the extra-strength telephone line that crosses Dave Baker's pasture. New wires, speedy, power-driven augers that burrow out of the earth a place to set a telephone pole, sharp-tongued wire plows that bite into the ground as if they really enjoyed it and lay special rubber-covered wire, as well as a new way of using power lines as telephone pathways, have stretched the long arm of friendly telephone service to many a friendly farmhouse door. Besides serving as a path for telephone wire and acting as a highway for the newest transcontinental airplanes that fly so high they cannot be seen, only heard, the air above the earth serves as a highway for something else that can be heard but not seen. The only visible sign of these conversations is the radio relay tower they come from, through whose lens pass microwave radio beams, carrying not only the telephone messages you speak, but the radio programs you hear, the television shows you see, to the next tower on a hilltop 25 miles away, which receives the signal and sends it to the next hilltop tower, and so on until its destination is reached. Another communications highway of the present and the future is to be found in coaxial cable. The basic coaxial cable can handle 1,800 telephone conversations at one time, and that's a lot of telephone service. Not to forget television programs, teletypewriter news services, and radio programs. Coaxial cable like this has already crisscrossed the country, pushed past some of our last frontiers, guided by a 20th century type of pioneer who swapped his covered wagon and team of oxen for a diesel-powered cable plow and left in his wake not a wagon trail, but a network of electronic highways. Another frontier in the everlasting campaign to improve service is to be found in the town of Media, Pennsylvania, not far from Philadelphia. It's Monday morning in Media, and Mrs. Douglas of the Hillcrest Avenue Douglases can hardly wait to telephone Philadelphia to order a real bargain she spotted in her Sunday paper. There she goes. It's an out-of-town call, but she dials the number directly without having to reach an operator. One of the most important problems that had to be solved to furnish this service was finding a way of automatically keeping track of how long Mrs. Douglas's conversation lasted
the telephone number she called, telephone number, so she could be correctly billed. This array of impressive-looking equipment in the central office went into action to do just that. It's not enough for the equipment to remember, it's got to make a record as well. Here at this recorder, the billing information from Mrs. Douglas's call and others from media is punched out in code on a reel of tape. At an accounting center in Philadelphia, the information is processed by machines which have had such brains and skill in them that they can translate the coded perforations into a record. Efficient as this equipment is, it's but an early step in the development of an automatic message accounting system. In the laboratories, the men who develop new equipment and the men who will have to build it are always at work, not only improving what has been developed, but creating new things as well. Like the latest crossbar switching system, whose automatic switching of telephone calls has made possible operator toll dialing. However, it's one thing for highly skilled scientists, technicians to develop our equipment in the laboratories, and quite another to mass produce it on a production line.
What goes into it? Where do we get it? How much does it cost? What are the conditions under which it must be handled? What tools will be required for its assembly? What production procedures will be followed? What skills will be required by people employed in this operation? What training will they need in addition to their previous experience? Is adequate test equipment available? What rate of production is indicated by the specifications?
In this case, as in all cases, the combination of Western Electric working with the Bell Laboratories on crossbar switching equipment from the very beginning made it possible for those questions to be answered before they were ever asked, and paved the way for operator toll dialing, a new technique in telephone service that makes it possible for operators to dial long-distance calls directly without going through other operators along the way or at the distant place. That's quite an improvement in long-distance service when you consider that in 1927, if you wanted to make a long-distance call, you picked up your telephone and then something like this took place.
Number, please.
May I have long distance?
One moment, please.
This is long distance.
I want to call Chicago. The number is Wabash, 2098.
Thank you. We will call you when ready with Chicago.
The long-distance operator passed the call on to a line operator who found an available line to Chicago, and over it reached an operator at the incoming switchboard for Chicago long-distance calls.
Chicago. Wabash, 2098.
The Chicago operator put the call through to the Wabash central office.
Wabash.
2098.
And finally, the operator was able to ring your party. Time required, about 5 minutes on the average. And in 1927, that was good long-distance service. Today, in many places, with many more on the way, you give your long-distance operator the number, and she calls into action the crossbar dial switching system, which sets in motion the corresponding equipment in Chicago. And the next thing you know, Wabash 2, 2098 is ringing. Time required, about 1 minute. We've come a long way since 1927 because we wanted to come a long way. What's made it tough has been the complicated equipment necessary to give telephone service. When we develop something new, it's a physical impossibility and financially impractical to rip out everything we have in service one day and replace it with all new equipment the next. Besides, who is to tell this man that his call is not so important but that it can wait? Or this girl? The The country's telephone service can't be turned off while the telephone company changes over to new models. Wherever you go in the Bell system, from the operators at the other end of your line who take pride in the part they play in furnishing your telephone service, to the construction people who see to it that tomorrow's telephone lines are put in today, you will find telephone people building for the future. The future of the telephone business is bright and rich with promise for the millions of telephone users like yourselves, whose quick acceptance and ready use of each improvement in telephone service has helped make possible an endless chain of accomplishments. What will it be this time? An operator dial call to Cleveland? Or the ballet on Channel 2 by means of coaxial cable? An important call by mobile telephone service to a transcontinental truck on US 1? To a ship putting out to sea? Or to a train racing across country? It has been the faith of the American people who have invested their savings in the Bell system in the present, as well as the desire of telephone men and women everywhere to keep on furnishing more and better telephone service in the future, that makes this story a story without end.
In all types of operating, there are many opportunities for two operators to work together as a team to advance or complete a call. Let's watch a few examples of how this is done in toll dialing. Miss Kelly is going to ask for assistance from one of her teammates. While working on one call, she receives a disconnect signal on another on which time and charge are to be quoted. Since the operator on her left is not busy at the moment, Miss Kelly excuses herself to the customer.
One moment, please. Rita, would you quote the charges on this for me, please?
Surely. As Miss Kelly releases her recording completing trunk, Rita takes up a switching trunk and key pulses the customer's number. Let's watch Miss Boyle as she takes advantage of an opportunity to team. She is recording a call. Before it can be advanced, she will receive a flashing signal on another connection.
Thank you. One moment, please. Long distance.
I've been cut off, operator.
I'm sorry. I will try to get Lamar 2704 for you. One moment, please. I have a cutoff. Will you take this other call?
Surely.
The teammate takes up the recording trunk by substituting chords, and each operator advances her call. Let's look at another example of teamwork. Miss Kelly is waiting for the called party to come to the telephone on one call when she notices that it is time to make a subsequent attempt on another.
Dot, will you try this call for me?
Surely.
The teammate advances the call. Then, because she is unable to reach a multiple appearance of the switching trunk, she releases it and secures the calling line on her own position. Let's look at still another example of teamwork. Miss Boyle has just finished recording a call when a disconnect signal appears on a connection from a coin telephone, which has gone into overtime.
One moment, please.
She stamps the ticket and collects the initial deposit.
I have overtime to collect. Will you take this other call for me? It's on Charlestown 1-4.
Surely. Okay.
Her teammate advances the call while Miss Boyle secures the overtime deposit. This has demonstrated a few situations where skillful operators team to furnish their customers speedy service and at the same time use the circuits efficiently. This demonstration will show signals other than connect and disconnect signals. The operator has received the details of the call. She selects a trunk and key pulses the number. A busy signal is received. Note the regular flash, about 1 per second. As soon as this signal is seen, the front cord should be disconnected and a report given to the customer.
The line is busy. I'll call you.
On this call, after key pulsing, the operator encounters this signal. A regular, rapid flash. This is called the reorder signal and is received when something occurs that interferes with the completion of the call. When this signal appears, the front cord is disconnected, an idle trunk selected, and the call is key pulsed again. Sometimes, after key pulsing, the operator encounters an NC signal. This signal is an irregular flash and is an indication that all of the circuits are busy. When this occurs, the operator takes down the front cord and gives the report to the customer.
The circuits to Atlanta are busy now. I'll call you when I can obtain one.
Now, there is another type of cord signal, the recall. This signal indicates the distant operator has a report on the call. It may appear as a flashing signal like this, or as a steady light like this. Either may remain lighted until answered, or only for the duration of the ring. In any case, the signal is answered promptly.
Boston?
Let's review the cord signals we have demonstrated. The line busy signal, a regular flash about 1 per second. The reorder signal, a regular rapid flash. The NC signal, an irregular flash. And finally, the recall, which may appear as a rapid flash or as a steady light. Operators must be able to recognize each signal in order to give good service and to eliminate the unnecessary use of equipment and circuits needed by other operators, not only in this office, but throughout the system. This demonstration will show the procedures and techniques used in dialing. The ticket is placed near the dial so that the routing directions and the call number can be seen readily. The operator knows 216 is the code for Cleveland. The essential equipment consists of the dial itself, the dialing key, the dial pilot lamp, and the dialing tool. Let's watch the operator dial a call. The dialing key is operated. The start dialing signal lights, indicating that the dial is associated with the cord pair and that the equipment is ready to receive the impulses that will be dialed into it. Then the routing code and the call number are dialed, and as soon as the dial returns to normal after the last pull, the dialing key is restored. Let's watch the technique used by the operator. The dialing tool is held firmly in the desired opening and perpendicular to the face of the dial. A firm contact is maintained until the stop is reached, and then the dialing tool should be removed immediately and poised above the next letter or digit to be dialed. In some offices, the dialing tool is not used. Let's see the operator dial a call using her index finger. First, she operates the dialing key in the proper direction. The start dialing signal lights, and now she dials the routing code and the called number. The dialing key is returned to normal. Let's watch some calls being dialed. For this one to New York, Rector 2, 6168, we have trunks in the multiple, and the designation strip shows 2L+, which means we dial RE2, 6168. The dialing key is operated, the start dialing signal lights. Once started, dialing is never interrupted. When the dial returns to normal after the last pull, the dialing key is restored. On this call to Chicago, the operator remembers that the routing directions are 312+, 2L+, and that the call is routed over tandem 1. She takes up a dial tandem trunk, operates the dialing key, waits for the start dialing signal, and then dials 312, MI2, 6702. The dialing key is restored. On this call to Atlanta, the underglass bulletin showed the routing directions to be 404+, 3L+. The dialing key is operated and the start dialing signal lights. She dials 404, LAM, 6930, and restores the dialing key. For this call to Canton, the routing directions were found in the multi-card bulletin, and since they included more than one 3-digit code, they were entered on the ticket. The dialing key is operated, and when the start dialing signal lights, she moves the dial rapidly around to the stop for each digit. When the dial has returned to normal after the last pull, she restores the dialing key. This call is to a ring down point, as indicated by the absence of a plus sign after the last code. The operator will dial only the routing codes. The call number 3, 7600, will be passed to the Charleston inward operator when she answers. Now, let's review the procedures and techniques used in dialing. The ticket is placed near the dial. The dialing key is operated in the proper direction to connect the dial with the cord. The start dialing signal then lights, indicating to the operator that she may go ahead and dial. When the dial returns to normal after dialing the last digit, the dial key is restored. Remember, be ready to dial before selecting a trunk. Dial rapidly and accurately. Hold the dialing tool perpendicular to the dial. Maintain a firm contact until the stop is reached. Poise above the next digit to be dialed. Never interrupt dialing once started. These techniques and procedures will save circuit and equipment time, as well as make sure that the call is accurately and rapidly sped on its way.
Across the Hudson River from New York City and westward into the state of New Jersey is the city of Englewood. Englewood could be any one of hundreds of American communities, population 25,000, main street with busy stores, banks, and movie theaters, attractive suburban homes with their neat lawns and their well-groomed look. In size and in the kind of people who live here, Englewood is like many other American towns. And that was one of the reasons it has become the first town in the world to have an unusual kind of telephone service.
Oh, I'll go see over there.
You finish your coffee, John. I'll answer it. Probably the mailman. John, it's from Sally. She says the baby has the measles. Oh, dear.
Well, now, measles. That's not so serious. All kids get them sooner or later.
John Warren, you know Ruthie is only 14 months old. Poor little dear. I'm worried.
Well, if you're worried, why don't you call her up? You got her number in that little book of yours. No, it's just about 8 o'clock in San Francisco. They'll be up.
You know, I believe I will.
Go ahead, call her. You'll feel better.
Three, 1, 8, G, A, 5, 2, 3, 6, 8. Are you sure it isn't too early out there?
Oh, no, it's 11 o'clock here. That means it's 8 o'clock out there.
Hello? Sally? Sally, this is Mother.
Simple, wasn't it? She just picked up her telephone and dialed her daughter in San Francisco, California. In a matter of seconds, she is talking with her. Simple, and yet you are seeing the results of many, many years of coordinated effort in research, engineering, and operating experience. It's hard for us to realize today that in the early 1880s, the telephone was considered a newfangled contraption. Boy operators manned the switchboards in those days, and it was an adventure to be able to talk with friends or relatives on the other side of town. The telephone at last was filling a deep human need, the need of people separated from one another to talk with each other. Soon, alert girl operators replaced the boys. New types of instruments were developed, and the telephone grew up with a growing America. The demand for telephone service snowballed. Indeed, the use of the telephone became so tremendous that by the 1920s, dial service was rapidly being introduced to help handle the increased volume of calls. As the calls increased, more operators were needed. More calls to handle meant more jobs to do and more people to fill those jobs. This has been the story all through the development of the telephone. For instance, in the days when we had little or no dial service, the Bell system had 270,000 employees. By the time 70% of the telephones were dial, there were 600,000 employees, more than twice as many. But the remarkable use of the telephone was only part of the story of change in American life. As villages became towns, and towns became industrial cities, people's interests broadened. Where those early citizens were thrilled to telephone across town, people now wanted to call towns and cities across the nation. Finally, they wanted their voices to span the oceans. And they did. Truly, America had grown up. All of which brings us back to Englewood. From many of Englewood's telephones, you could already dial any one of more than 4 million other telephones in the surrounding territory. A fine example of modern telephone service, and therefore a fine proving ground for this new type of long-distance service. A proving ground to answer such questions as, will customers like the service? Do they find it easy to use? What improvements can be made? This first installation now enables telephone users to dial their own long-distance calls, as well as their local calls and calls to nearby communities. The equipment that makes this service possible is among the most complex that man has ever devised. When you dial a number, the equipment obediently receives the information, stores it up, and remembers it. It searches out an electrical pathway for your call, choosing the one that is most suitable at a given instant. If it finds one pathway blocked, it tries another, and another, and another. If it runs into trouble, it automatically reports the trouble and its probable source. Parts of the equipment connected with other parts exchange information. They do this sometimes by a touch system, such as the blind use in reading Braille. Sometimes it's done with a stream of electrons flowing through space. Sometimes it uses an elaborate system of musical notes, played in chords that are heard and interpreted by a mechanical ear. But even that's not all of it. Keeping track of the details of the call is done automatically too. When you dial a number, holes are punched in a continuous tape representing your telephone number and the number you dial. More holes are punched to show the time when you start talking and when you finish talking and hang up. If you get a busy signal or the number doesn't answer, no charge is made. Since all this information is in the form of tiny holes in a long piece of paper, the meaning of these tiny holes has to be expressed in words and figures. This is done by running the tape through several machines which assemble the information, translate, sort and summarize it, figure the length of your call, apply the correct rate, and, you guessed it, type your toll statement. But for the Englewood telephone user, it's as easy as dialing a local call. Remember that number Mrs. Warren looked up in her personal telephone notebook? 318 Garfield 5 2368. The only difference between that and a local number is the 3 digits at the beginning. 318 is the code for the San Francisco area. If her daughter had lived in Chicago, Mrs. Warren would have dialed the code 312 and then the telephone number. Cleveland, 216. Boston, 617. Altogether, more than 80 numbered areas are planned for the United States and parts of Canada. For some time past, area numbers like these have been used by telephone operators in dialing long-distance calls. When the people in the Englewood area with 1- and 2-party lines were given this service, they could dial to 13 of these areas. That meant that more than 11 million telephones could be dialed from Englewood. When will the 11 million be able to dial Englewood? And what about the remaining millions of telephones in the Bell system? The answer lies in the future. But this much we do know. Over the years, we have seen the results of a successful formula. Planned research to anticipate the demands of a growing nation, available resources, plus the continued efforts of many people. This combination has given America steady improvements in telephone service. And the story of long-distance dialing points the way to even better telephone service for you tomorrow.
Long distance. Long distance. Long distance.
Millions of times every day in America, a voice on a wire briefly and simply identifies itself in two words: long distance. These words form one of the most familiar phrases of our language. It is a phrase that announces an unseen personality, an alert young woman who needs to know only who or where in order to make a path for speech to town or countryside over the horizon. It suggests naturally a watchful feminine presence at a switchboard and the supplementary agency that in a few seconds can select from countless routes the one that best can take this speech to faraway places. These two words, long distance, represent more than the activities of switching and routing. They refer, first of all, to the routes themselves. These routes are special ones, supplied with equipment to make far speaking possible, however great the distance. Many of them provide direct wires for communication between busy centers as modern substitutes for switching interruptions of an older day. By connection with the local systems of every area in the land, they form the unified network that pulses with the flow of talk, expressing the activities of industry, agriculture, government, and the home life of the nation. A 250,000 miles of these specially equipped circuits are underground, and the lines above the ground are so extensive that no man has ever seen them all. 1 million poles parade across the landscape, bearing the graceful drapery of the cables packed with wires, or spreading the wires themselves along their tiers of cross arms. Some of them march beside the rolling traffic of the highways. Other columns head straight across the fields or through the forest wilderness or over desert sands. Rivers are no barriers, for the cables cling to bridges or dive beneath the waters flowing on to the lake or ocean. At times, ingenious structures take the wires over river beds that may be either dry or white with foaming water as the season wills. There are highways of wire that bridge the entire land between the seaboards of the nation. These vital transcontinental arteries scale the mountain ramparts of the East that once hemmed in the builders of the infant republic. They stretch across the prairies where the covered wagon made its plodding and heroic way. They climb the lofty ranges of the West to spread their circuits thousands of feet above the level of the sea. They traverse the land where once the cry rang out, "Remember the Alamo." They span the deserts of the great Southwest, where Coronado's men once bore the banners of old Spain. The romance of America's growth speaks from the vast expanse now crossed so easily by the flying words of men. It is an epic story, for it tells of the creation of an empire, as vast territories were added to the new nation in less than a lifetime until its lands stretched from ocean to ocean. This romance is the story of explorers who braved the dangers of an unknown western wilderness that they might discover for America what was encompassed in her new boundaries. It is the record of the traders and trappers who were the pathfinders of a coming civilization, of the pioneers who followed the setting sun to cross a continent, making history with every weary mile. It is the thrilling, heartwarming story of faith and courage that faced without flinching the uncertainties and dangers of isolation. A courage that laughed away the hardships, that sang away the heartaches as the wagons creaked and lumbered along the pioneer trails. And it is the story of still other pioneers whose enterprise and genius met the human need for links that would bind together men and families and communities, though a continent was between. And so a land was peopled, so a scattered society became a homogeneous one, as obstacles to the interchange of intelligence and ideas were conquered. And so did builders, engineers, and scientists give new meaning to a word that once meant months, but now means seconds, that once meant isolation, but now means unity, to that arresting and significant word, transcontinental. But long distance means more than wires. It also means waves, waves that are tossed by antennas through the invisible ether so that the voice of America may leap over the seas to 6 continents and to ships at sea, while other wire fingers reach up to catch the waves that answer, waves bringing news of exciting happenings in other lands, waves holding reports from the nation's faraway embassies, waves that may carry the message of a king, or a joyful greeting of a mother to a distant child. And besides these wire and wireless channels to distant places, long distance also means the art whereby the wires and wireless are brought together. Stationed like sentinels along our country's eastern and western shores are the houses of magic where sensitive apparatus and skilled attendants form and guard the unbroken pathways that span the 7 seas, in the telephone's conquest of time and space. There are other houses of magic too, hundreds of them, placed with the precision of engineering science, without which the land wires would fail in their word-bearing mission. Just as the cry in other days was, "Fresh horses for the stagecoach," so now must there be new energy for the electric currents that speed our speech to distant places. Repeaters are what these energizers are called, It is because of them and the experts guarding them that the precious freight of words upon the wires may be delivered undelayed and unharmed despite the distance of their travel. Nor are words the only freight that rides the wires. There is music, too, that must travel unimpaired by the length of its journey. For long distance is each wire network that brings to broadcasting stations the songs of the day, the music of the masters, the voice of statesman, humorist, newscaster. It is the technique that links together with split-second precision the ever-changing station groups. It is the responsibility to judge electrically each spoken word, each tone of orchestra or singer before far-off radio transmitters receive them. But more than speech and music is flowing along the wires. There is the written word as well. At many a switchboard is the sound not of voices, but of tapping keys, as operators provide wire channels for typed communications. And so long distance means the circuits over which written messages may pass between teletypewriters. It means other circuits too, for carefully planned teletypewriter systems. To the machines of great news-gathering organizations come the reports of what a busy world is thinking and doing and hoping. There is sifting, checking, editing, and then 1 million words a day are sent along 300,000 miles of wire to feed the waiting presses. Again, there is special news for those who protect communities, the alarms that tell of lawlessness and crime, the warnings that help to trap and capture public enemies. To meet the speed of escape, long distance gives the speed of the flashing word. In one great area of the Northeast, larger than that of all of Great Britain, the police organizations of many states cooperate to utilize a special wire network in their alert activities. And who does not know of the federal agency whose vigilance and efficiency must be nationwide in scope? To its headquarters lead special circuits from every nook and corner of the land to report investigations, to carry back instructions, orders, decisions, to interchange vital information for the protection of the public welfare. And there is other vital news. It is that which is compressed in the terse language of coded reports to guide the flying men of this modern day, whose confident passage through the air depends on what the wires tell of fog or wind or rain or sleet or landing field ahead. Finally, there are the organizations whose trust it is to defend the nation. Their protective services rest on the coordination of widely scattered units. Their far-flung activities are unified and mobilized through the swift transmission of information, of instructions, of commands. Long distance is here, too, called to the colors and serving with pride. And so, long distance means many things: waves, wires, antennas, buildings, many arts, many skills, many functions, a composite instrumentality ready for the task ahead. And giving this instrumentality life and energy is the spirit that moves men and women everywhere who undertake the duties of communication. It is the spirit that fights the storm and keeps the wires working, come sleet or snow or hurricane or flood. It is the spirit that speeds, in routine or emergency alike, the words that question, that answer, that decide, that summon aid or give it. It is the age-old tradition of the message bearer.
distance. Long distance.
Long distance.
Operator, I'm calling Chicago. Dearborn 2, 4682. My number's Main 6, 9913.
Thank you.
Johnson speaking.
Hello, Bob. Bob, this is Ray Miller. Look, Bob, on that Donaldson order. They've got the specifications all wrong.
It's really amazing how fast that call went through. Mr. Miller had a lot on his mind, so perhaps he didn't notice it. But some people have noticed that their calls are being completed more quickly than ever these days. One reason for it is operator toll dialing, a new method of speeding speech now being introduced in city after city throughout the Bell system. Such operator dialing can be done with the familiar telephone dial or, as in this office, with a key set, which is faster. These operators are using equipment which improves the service and reduces the time in which the average long-distance call goes through. Let's watch how the operator handled Mr. Miller's call.
Long distance.
Operator, I'm calling Chicago. Dearborn 2, 4682. My number's Main 6, 9913.
Thank you.
After writing down the two numbers on a ticket record, looking up the route to Chicago, and plugging into a trunk or pathway to the equipment, the operator depresses the proper keys to advance the call. Each key gives part of the information needed. From there on, the new equipment takes over and promptly advances the call right through to ringing the distant telephone directly. That's all there is to it. When her signal light shows that the call party is answered, the operator stamps the time on the ticket. For a comparison, let's suppose that you're making a toll call between two cities with no direct lines connecting them, and the call is handled by one of the methods used before operator toll dialing. You reach the long-distance operator in City A and give her the number of the call party. She probably calls in another operator in your own city and asks to be connected with City X, an intermediate point. When the girl there answers, your operator asks for a connection through to City B. But suppose this is the unusual case when all the lines to B are busy. Your operator then has to start all over again. She asks the other operator in your city for City Y, an alternate routing. When this connection is made, the girl in City Y puts the call through to City B. The operator in City B connects through to the number you called, rings it, and your party answers. Service by such methods has been developed to a high degree of efficiency, but operator toll dialing will make it even better. Now, if this call is handled by the new method, you begin the same way by reaching your long-distance operator and telling her the number you want. She brings in the automatic switching equipment serving your city and gives it the information by dialing or using her key set. Without further help, the new equipment selects a clear path to City X. discovers that no lines are available from X to B, goes right on to city Y, finds an available line to city B, and rings the telephone of the called party. Once the operator presses the proper keys, it happens, just like that, in less time than it takes to tell about it. Let's look at some of the ingenious devices which provide this improved service. These intricate switches are one of the types actually used to connect long-distance calls. This key set in the test equipment is just like the ones the operators use. It is hooked up to a loudspeaker so we can hear what goes on behind the scenes. Each key has a combination of tones or notes of its own. When the operator plugs into a trunk, she is connected to a sender, such as this. By pressing her keys, she puts the tones into the sender. For example, on Mr. Miller's call to Chicago, the first 3 tones are the code for Chicago. The next 3, the code for the office name, and the last 4 tones, the telephone number. The sender registers the tones and remembers them. Then it calls on another device, the marker. Telephone people call it the brain because of its complex nerve system. The marker picks up the first 3 tones, selects a clear path to the distant city, sets up the connection between that path and the long-distance operator's position, and notifies the sender that everything is ready. Then the sender releases the rest of the information, sending the tones along to tell the equipment in the distant city how to complete the call. Here's a test panel which provides a visible record of all calls going through the equipment. If there's any trouble in handling a call, the marker immediately complains on the trouble indicator panel here. It calls for the doctor, so to speak. At the present time, long-distance offices like the one you've seen can control existing mechanical equipment in many parts of the country. Further installations are now going forward. How does a development like this come about? A broad program of research and development covering all aspects of communication is constantly carried on in the Bell Telephone Laboratories. Over the years, scientists like these developed equipment which would be able, in a measure, to think, to make decisions by itself. They conceived and designed automatic switching and the use of tones for sending signals over long distances, used in toll dialing. But new devices must be designed for mass production at low cost. That's why Bell Telephone Laboratories and the Western Electric Company, the manufacturer and supply member of the Bell System team, work hand in hand in designing and building for telephone service. The thousands of special parts needed for operator toll dialing are manufactured and assembled in various Western Electric plants, then put through rigid tests before being shipped. Their experts follow the equipment to the operating centers and carry out the complex job of installation. And just as it takes people to design and build ingenious new devices and to install them, it takes people to run them. More men with greater knowledge and skills are needed to maintain this new system. So, many telephone people are going back to school. And of course, the operators have to be trained in using the new equipment. Today, more and more long-distance calls are being handled by operator toll dialing. And as this service is extended, the day draws nearer when long-distance calls will go through just like local calls. What is the effect of such improvements? As service becomes better, people use it more. And greater use means a steadily growing number of telephone people. Today, for example, there are about twice as many men and women in the Bell system as there were 25 years ago. Operator toll dialing as a method of speeding speech is already an accomplished fact to the scientists of the Bell system, even though it will take a great deal of time and money before all the needed equipment can be built, installed, and put into operation all over the country. What will the outcome of their present research be? How many uses will be found for it? Perhaps these men themselves cannot tell us the details now, but the final aim is clear. Their goal is the goal of all the men and women of the Bell system, the best possible service at the least possible cost. And that means a constantly improved and faster service for all of us.
Charlie. What's new today?
Oh, same old thing, I guess. Here's a paper if you want it, Dad.
Good. I was wondering where that doggone kid was.
Where's Mom, Jeannie?
Starting supper. I'm going to help her as soon as I finish this algebra problem.
Oh, Jenny, you know what it says here? They're going to take out all our phones and put in them kind with dials on them.
Oh, Gramps, that's yummy. Does it say how soon?
A few weeks, I guess.
That'd be just super.
Oh, pshaw.
What'd you say, Gramps?
I said, oh, pshaw. As soon as a man gets used to one thing, by golly, somebody wants to take it away from him.
But, Gramps, we've had that old phone since... Well, I bet since Daddy was a boy. We ought to be glad to have modern telephones.
Oh, shucks. You young'uns are never satisfied these days. Folks are getting more worried about being modern than they are over 3 square meals. I'm going to call up Ed Hochstetter and find out what he thinks about all this business. Give me 344J. Thank you kindly.
Don't talk too long, Gramps. Supper will be ready in a few minutes.
Never missed a meal yet. Ain't gonna start now.
All right.
Hello, Ed? I say, is this Ed Hochstetter talking? Huh? Well, get along close to your phone. Ain't gonna bite you, Ed. What say? Can't you hear me? I was talking about aeroplanes skywriting.
Doing all kinds of tricks? Right over town?
Sure, I can see it from a front porch. By Grammy, I knew that'd make all them eavesdroppers hang up and run outside.
Ollie, you ain't changed a bit. That's pretty slick of you getting them off the line so we can hear better. Dial telephone? Yes, I did hear something about it down at the grocery store this morning. Yeah, everybody thought it was a good idea.
Oh, did they? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. No, I ain't going to get it in. No, I was just wondering why they wanted to change something that still works all right. Now, see here, I ain't no more old-fashioned than you are.
Gramp will get used to it, Jeannie. He said the same thing when I got my new washer, remember?
Yes, and he wouldn't go near it for weeks. He even likes to work it now.
Charlie, Jean says we're going to have dial phones put in. Gramp read about it in the paper.
Yes, I heard about it today. Ought to be a fine improvement for us here in town. It'll mean pretty fast, up-to-date service.
You can pour the water, honey.
Okay, Mom. Gramp got all worked up. He's trying to get Hochstetter now.
Yes, I heard him hollering out there in the hall. But he'll be all right when he hears there might be some new construction going on. He'll go down there every day if he can and tell them how to do it. From what I hear, they're planning to hold some meetings around town later on.
What kind of meetings, Charlie?
Oh, to tell folks all about the new system, how it works and everything. John Cook will be the main speaker.
John Cook?
You know, he's the telephone manager.
Oh, yes, sure.
The first talk will be at the next parent-teachers meeting.
I guess we'll have to figure on going then.
Can I go too, Daddy?
You won't have to, Jeannie. He's going to talk at a meeting in the school assembly for you kids. You'll hear about it then.
Oh.
Hey, what's going on here? You can't even talk. Where's that supper I was going to be late for?
Oh, you're just in time.
We're talking about going to a meeting, Dad. The telephone company wants to tell us all about this new dial service.
Meeting tonight? Can't go. I'm going to watch Ed Hochstetter paint his wife's pantry.
Well, Dad, you'll be able to go to this meeting all right. It won't be for some time yet.
friends. It won't be long now until your new dial telephones are ready to serve you. And I know you're as glad as I am that we're going to have an as up-to-date telephone system here as any in America. Now, most of you are acquainted with what a dial telephone looks like because nearly all of the installations have been made in your homes. But lots of other work has been going on around town, too, as you've probably noticed. The wiring that runs to your homes has been checked. New pole lines have been put up. And new cable has been pulled into place. Things were happening behind the scenes, too. In fact, the planning and the work on your new dial system has been underway for some time. A good many months ago, our engineers drew up the plans for the new equipment. It was built to these specifications in Western Electric's factories. Telephone equipment is pretty much standard throughout the whole Bell system, but each community has its own telephone needs, and our equipment must be built to fit those needs, not only for today, but for years to come. Sometimes new buildings are required to hold the dial equipment. In these cases, we try to have them harmonize with the surroundings. It took a lot of time for our men to install equipment for dial service, and it took many days to put the new telephones in your homes. A little later on, I'm going to ask Miss White of our traffic department to demonstrate how to make a call with your dial telephone. But right now, I want you to listen to a man who has been working on the job of getting dial service ready for use. I'd like Mr. Johnson of our plant department to get up and tell you what happens during the actual cutover from the old system to the new one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, of course you know from what you've already heard that putting things in good shape for the new system has been quite a job. The main thing now is we're heading toward the time when we make the actual change to the new service, what we call the cutover. So that there'll be no break in the community service, this must all be done in a few seconds. You can see these are mighty important seconds and mighty exciting seconds. When the signal is given, the little fuses are pulled out of the lines that were part of the switchboard service, and the old service dies. And at almost the same instant, a few seconds at most, we close the connections in the dial apparatus, and it is ready to handle your calls. From then on, you will have a dependable electrical operator at your service, ready at an instant's notice, one that will be there 24 hours a day to handle your calls. Instead of hearing the familiar number, please, you will hear the dial tone, which says the same thing electrically.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And now Miss White will give you some pointers on using your new dial telephone. Miss White.
Mr. Johnson has just told you that your calls are handled in the dial system by an electrical operator. Of course, you've got to understand that the dial system doesn't do away with the need for human operators. Although more than half the telephones in America are dial, we have more operators than we ever had before. Better service means that people make more calls, and more calls mean more operators. Dial or no dial, you'll still be placing out-of-town calls. You'll still want us to find unlisted numbers for you. Or you may need help in an emergency. So don't worry, you'll find operators just as before when you need them. Now, I'm sure that most of you have used a dial telephone before, but perhaps you'd like to know why it works the way it does. We'll use this equipment over here to demonstrate. As you can see, this big dial looks like the one you have on your new telephone. Suppose you've got a number you want to call. What's the first thing you do? Take up your receiver and listen for the dial tone. Here's how it sounds. The dial tone is the equipment's way of telling you that it's ready to put through your call. As Mr. Johnson pointed out, it's the same as an operator saying, "Number, please." If you don't hear the dial tone within a reasonable time, hang up, wait a few seconds, and then try again. As soon as you hear the dial tone, you're ready to dial the number you want. But before we do that, let's examine the dial itself for a moment. When you operate the dial, bringing it around to the finger stop and then release it, an electrical code message is sent to the automatic equipment in the central office. You'll get some idea of what happens over at the central office if you'll think of these columns of lights as representing the central office dial equipment. For example, if the first number you dial is 5, a 5 signal is received at the central office. Here, the signal appears in the first column of lights as 5. Say the next number you dial is 6. The signal appears in the next column of lights as 6. Suppose we say the third number dialed is also a 6. It will appear in the third column of lights, and so on. Of course, the dial equipment receiving these signals in the central office is quite different from anything we have here on the platform. But in any sequence of numbers, the number you dial will cause a particular signal to be sent to the dial equipment in the central office. Now let's start at the very beginning and see what you do when you want to call someone. First, you get the number from your new directory. Let's say the number is 4567. Then pick up your telephone and listen for the dial tone. As soon as you hear the dial tone, you can start to dial the number. Here's the dial tone. Four. Notice the first column has received the signal 4, and so on with 5, 6, and 7. Always pull the dial all the way around to the finger stop and lift your finger after each number so that the dial swings back of its own accord. This is important because the electrical signals are sent to the dial equipment only as the dial swings back. Any interference with the return of the dial may result in you getting a wrong number. Soon after the last number is dialed, you will usually hear this tone. That's the ringing signal. It tells you that the telephone at the number you called is ringing. The party at this number will hear a clear, evenly spaced ring that sounds like this. The ring will continue until the telephone is answered, or if no one answers, until you hang up. When you've dialed a number and that line is busy, you'll hear a signal like this. If you hear the busy signal, simply hang up and wait a few minutes for the people who are talking on the line to finish, then try again. When you raise your telephone and listen for the dial tone, but discover someone else talking on the line, hang up and try again after you've waited a reasonable time. Also, if you lift your receiver and hear the clicks that indicate someone else on the line is dialing, hang up as carefully as possible. But no matter how often or when you call, always be sure to listen for the dial tone before you start to dial. For instance, if you should dial 8, before hearing the dial tone, the equipment may register only, well, some other number. Five. The reason is really very simple. You started to dial before the equipment was ready, and so it didn't receive all the electrical signals you tried to send it. The main things to remember are, first, look up the number in your new directory. Second, raise your telephone and listen for the dial tone. Third, dial each number carefully, making sure you bring the dial all the way around to the finger stop each time. Then let go. Don't try to hurry it back. I'm sure if you follow these simple rules, you'll find your new dial telephones easy to operate, convenient to use, and quick in service. Thank you.
That's the right noise. Now, let me see. 4, 1, 9, 2. Hello? This Ed Hochstetter? By golly, Ed, this thing isn't hard to work. No, sir. Got my call through first time I tried. Real nice and clear, too, isn't it? God blame me if I don't think this darn thing is going to work out pretty good at that. Yeah.
More than 75 years ago, a man invented the telephone. His name was Alexander Graham Bell. Everybody knows that. But who knows precisely what Mr. Bell had in mind for his ingenious new device? Who knows?
Homicide. Donegan speaking. Yeah? Be right over.
At the tone, the time will be 5 exactly.
Hello, Mom.
Daddy, you're home. Do you think this is her first husband? Oh, Lucia!
Tell me more.
Well, I'm not one to talk, but...
The number you have dialed has been disconnected. This is a recording.
Besides, there's more in life than boys. Oh, I must read you a note I got from Herbie. It'll only take a few minutes. Yes, Daddy. I'll call you later.
Me, ba 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 ba. Of all the cockeyed times for the phone to ring. All right, I'll be there. I'm coming.
The telephone. Few products of man's ingenuity have been so widely used and misused. Today, everybody knows everything about the telephone. But who knows what Mr. Bell had in mind? Also, what he did not have in mind. Here, for example, is Agatha Fewsmith. She's calling a Mrs. Evans about the local church bazaar. But if you were Mrs. Evans, you'd never know it. For some reason, Agatha can't get to the point. The weather leads to summer colds, and summer colds to that nice new doctor in the church membership. And Mrs. Evans is just confused. What's this all about, anyway? And when is it going to end? Now, by this time, Mrs. Evans feels trapped, and perhaps even a little bitter about the telephone.
Oh, that woman. Well, I never.
Mr. Bell did not have this in mind. But what he did have in mind is so easily accomplished. All it takes is a little organizing. That makes it easier on you, and it makes for a quicker, more pleasant way of getting things done. Precisely what Mr. Bell had in mind. That's even more important in the big, busy world of business. Yet, in his wildest imagination, Mr. Bell would never have conceived anything like the use salesman Sam Black is making of the telephone.
That's just one important feature, Mr. Reynolds. Now, let's talk about the powertrain. That's right, powertrain. That's the engine, the transmission, the rear axle. Well, sure, every car's got them. But the important thing is this. Yeah.
Sounds real interested, doesn't he? Mr. Bell definitely did not have this in mind. It's unstrategic for two reasons. First of all, you can't really sell a complicated piece of equipment over the telephone. Whatever your product, your prospect has to see its features and see them demonstrated to appreciate them. More important, your prospect has to understand your product's benefits to him before he'll buy. And it's simply too easy to say no over the telephone. In fact, it doesn't take any effort at all. But where does the telephone fit in here? Well, what Mr. Bell had in mind for the telephone was not keeping people apart, but getting them together. Using the telephones to establish an opportunity to do a good selling job, or to bring your prospect into the right selling atmosphere. But here's another example of something Mr. Bell would frown on. This energetic young man is Pete Wilson. And believe it or not, he's fairly intelligent, too. He's an air conditioner salesman, and he shrewdly figured out a sales plan. There must be a tremendous concentrated market for air conditioners. All he has to do is cover that market like a blanket. Mr. Bell would approve the determination, But he did not have such a pedestrian approach in mind. Pete has completely overlooked the whole point of Mr. Bell's invention. With time-saving telephone calls, our young salesman can quickly determine his air conditioner market. Who is a potential prospect and who is not. And Pete's ready to concentrate his selling time and energy on real prospects. That's when the telephone can really be an extra sales tool to help any salesman create selling opportunities. For instance, with his telephone and an owner list, a service file, or a registration list, depending on his field, a good salesman can literally ring hundreds of prospect bells right from his own office. And, of course, using the telephone strategically like this is just what Mr. Bell had in mind. Yet, even when the telephone is used strategically, unfortunate things happen that Mr. Bell did not have in mind. For example...
Hello. Mr. Carson, this is Wally Smith, Dependable Life Insurance Company. With that new home of yours, I'm sure you'll want dependable insurance protection.
Not with you, brother.
Another brush off for Wally. And it's really not the telephone's fault. Sure, anyone can see that Wally's actually a nice, friendly guy. But he doesn't sound that way over the telephone. Like a lot of other people, Wally doesn't project his true personality over the telephone. And again, the answer is so simple. Before you make your call, try imagining how you might sound over the telephone.
I'm sure you'll want dependable insurance protection.
And then how you want to sound.
Yes, Mrs. Carson. I'll be glad to drop by and explain it to you.
So, whoever you are, before you make that next call, think a moment. Remember how Agatha ambles on, and make sure you organize your call, even writing down the things you want to talk about before you make the call. Remember, too, that you can't sell a complicated idea or product over the phone. So use the telephone strategically to arrange your selling opportunities. And remember how valuable the telephone can be as a time and work saver when it's also used strategically to create new selling opportunities quickly and easily. And most important of all, remember how easy it is to give the wrong impression over the telephone. So imagine how you might sound to yourself. The chances are your true personality will go out over the telephone just as Mr. Bell had in mind. For he was not only an inventive man, but a man of great vision. And even though his first telephone message was sent quite by accident...
Mr. Watson, come here. I want you.
Mr. Bell, I heard you. I heard every word you said distinctly. You said, Mr. Watson, come here. I want you.
Why, so I did.
Oh, it's a wonderful day for you, Mr. Bell. Everything you've worked for, every dream has come true. It works, Mr. Bell. It works.
Yes, I dare say you're right, Watson. Our experiments have opened up a new age of communications. There'll be a day when people will think nothing of conversing through instruments such as we have developed.
You mean as an everyday occurrence?
Well, that's what I had in mind. The day will come when people will think no more of speaking to someone miles away than as if they were in the same room.
Think of its possibilities.
Yes, Watson. I can foresee the day when homes will be linked to other homes. Homes to factories, factories to stores. Cities will be joined to other cities, and nations to other nations.
But tell me how, Mr. Bell. How can you foretell all these wonders?
Well, now, really, who would know better than I? Any resemblance between Alexander Graham Bell and Don Amici was strictly intentional.
Tells the story, all right. Thousands and thousands of telephones to be made and all kinds of materials needed to make them. Copper, nickel, cotton, gold, silver. And from where? It's a tough job.
It ain't so tough.
That's what you think. Where did you come from?
Oh, I've been around. I know an easy way to get materials and make telephones.
You and what army?
Don't need an army. Just a little imagination. Watch. Well, what's so funny? I got what I went after, didn't I? See? Here's copper, nickel, wax, lead, cotton, and all the others that you need.
Well, that certainly does require imagination. But how on earth are you going to make 433 telephone parts from those paper labels?
Still skeptical, eh? Okay, mister, help me clear the deck for action, and I'll show you.
Silly idea. But maybe I'd better humor this little fella. No telling what he'll do next.
I'll show him.
Well, so far so good. But your job is only half done. You still haven't got a telephone.
Mister, haven't you got any imagination? Must I do it all? Take over, Ringer. It's your move. Music, maestro, please.
Nice going, nice going. But, what about the chords?
The chords? Oh, yeah, the chords. Hey, Ringer, how about the chords? What did I tell you? It ain't so tough.
Yes, but your way of doing it won't help us. Imagine making telephones out of paper labels. Why, that's movie stuff.
You're not fooling, boss. That's the only place it is easy. In the movie. This is the end, folks.
Attention projectionists. This chart will help you make sure that your picture will be focused properly before the show starts. Adjust the lens so that the bells in the corners and the two words are all sharply focused. Now adjust the sound volume. That's all. When this bell system seal fades out, shut off the projector. Everything will be properly set for your show to begin.
Well, it's that time of day again. Every afternoon at this hour, the human side of American business comes apart. The bits and pieces flying off in all directions. Big wheels, little cogs, and all the other people parts it takes to run the world. Of course, they will reassemble tomorrow. But in the meantime, well, look who's here. Under that perky hat is one of the nicer parts of business, Miss Connie Wisner. A pretty important cop. No use looking for him, Connie. Brad's held up in a traffic jam. He'll phone you later. She lives with a roommate, Miss Kelly Smith, a pretty snappy cog herself.
Hi. Hi, Kelly. Oh, boy. Here. You're late. Huh, you're telling me. Brad call you? No, not yet. So it's been one of those days, huh?
No, not really. I'm just in a hurry. In fact, everything went very smoothly today.
Well, my day was different, especially this afternoon.
I sometimes wonder what gets into switchboards.
That's easy. People.
I know what you mean.
Oh. Oh. I'm coming. I'm coming. Oh. Hello. Oh, yes. Just a minute. Connie, it's for you.
Okay, I'll take it.
It's Brad. Oh, good. Hi, honey. Why didn't you pick me up? You did? Oh, Brad, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. Well, you bet we will, honey. What time? Okay, I'll be ready. Bye. Guess what? What? He sold the Forrester deal, a $60,000 order. No. Yes. We're going to celebrate. He's coming by to pick me up. Good. At last I get to see the Wonder Man, huh?
You'll like him. He'll remind you of someone.
Who?
Oh, you'll see when he gets here.
$60,000 orders. He can afford to get married.
I'll tell him you said so.
Men.
And what's the matter with men?
Not a thing. I'm all for them. I think every girl should have one. But they have all the fun in business. Now look, Brad just sold an order. I don't know what our men at Lovell and Geddes did today, but I'm sure that somebody sold something or invented something or something. Something they can point to at the end of the day and say, that's what I did today. It shows they're important. But what can we gals at the switchboard point to? Because I didn't shoot a salesman today. I could point to that.
Who'd you want to shoot?
Bill Bullard. Who else? You know, sometimes I think it's a game with him to see if he can stump me. Like this morning. I was breezing along, situation normal. Lovell and Geddes. Mr. Schiller? Certainly.
Kelly, would you run these to the stamp machine, please, so the driver can take them? Right away.
Surely. Yes, please.
Well, he's waiting for them.
Yes, Mr. Bullard.
Good morning, Kelly. Get me Roy Wilson.
Trudy, who's Roy Wilson? Mr. Bullard wants him.
Wilson. Well, there's a new boy in the shipping room. I think his name's Wilson.
Oh, here it is. R.T. Wilson. That must be Roy.
Hey, Tad. Yo! Where's the Yarnell shipment? Right here. Give me a hand. In a minute. Shipping room, Paris. Wilson? He's on the dock. You want him?
Well, is his first name Roy? His initials are R.T.
I don't know. We call him Ted. Just a minute. Hey, Ted.
Yo!
What's your first name?
Who wants to know?
The front office, you meathead.
Oh, it's Ralph.
It's Ralph. That's okay, doll. Anytime.
He's not the one.
Well, why don't you call Eloise, Bullett's assistant?
I already did. She's not in her office.
Well, she may be on her break. Why don't you try the lounge?
Good idea.
I'll do the mail.
Eloise.
Eloise, say, do you know a Roy Wilson?
Mr. Bullard wants him.
Certainly. H.L. Wilson at Consolidated.
Mr. B said Roy, not H.L.
His name's Henry Leroy, but all his good friends call him Roy. I have his number, but it's at my desk. Just call Consolidated.
Okay, thank you.
Consolidated.
Mr. Roy Wilson, please. Thank you. Mr. Wilson? Good morning. Mr. Bullard calling you. Mr. Wilson, I'm sure that Mr. Bullard will be with you right away.
This is Mr. Bullard's office. You put the memo and the magazine in the in tray. And you take the stuff out that's in the out tray. Think we ought to answer that? Oh, no, they told us not to. Come on. Well, shouldn't somebody answer it? It might be important.
Mr. Wilson.
Well, that's terrible. What did you say?
What could I say? I said I was sorry and that Mr. Bullard had been called out unexpectedly, but I was sure that he would want to call back later.
Well, anyway, you get E for effort, Miss Smith. Did Bullard ever call you back?
Half an hour later. Ugh. How are you doing on my call to Wilson? I had Mr. Wilson on the line, Mr. Bullard, and then I couldn't find you. Ugh.
Too bad you couldn't remind him it's the person placing the call who's supposed to wait. Go on. What'd he say?
He said, well, I'm here now. Get him back. So, of course, I called back, and by then, Mr. Wilson had gone to lunch.
Oh, great. But tell me, why'd you keep ringing Bullard's phone so long if you knew he wasn't there?
How did I know he wasn't there? He has a habit of always letting his phone ring for a while before he picks it up.
Uh-oh, one of those, huh?
Mm-hmm. That's our Bullard. Oh, well, I guess every company has one.
We don't. Of course, I say a small prayer of thanks every day we have a boss like Bert Quinn. Like today. Show you how thoughtful he is? He called me. Yes, please.
Connie, this is Quinn. I'm having a little trouble with a call here. Will you please get me Mr. Russell Knazer? That's spelled K-N-O-E-Z-E-R.
Yes, sir.
In Toledo, Ohio. The area code is 419. Phone number 880-1498.
Thank you. Now, if you'd like to hold the line.
Thank you.
Fine.
Operator.
Area code 419-880-1498. Mr. Russell Knazer, spelled K-N-O-E-Z-E-R.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, Mr. Knazer. Quinn here. How are you? Fine. About your letter.
No wonder you have good service at your place. How'd you manage that?
Well, when the boss does it right, the rest pretty much follows suit. Of course, it also helped when the telephone company came in and gave all our extension users a little training program.
Oh.
Anyway, most calls the fellas take and dial themselves. When they do give me one, they try to give me all the information they have. Not only is it thoughtful, but it helps me and the operator give them faster service. And our fellas, when I ring their office, they pick up on the first ring. If they don't pick up on the second ring, I know they're not there. They're not trying to impress anyone.
Maybe that's the best way.
That's how I figure it. And it gives me more time for the calls that need special attention.
Boy, I wish somebody would tell that to Mr. Bullard.
Hey, Maybe you could talk your boss into having the phone company come in and train your extension users.
Yeah, not just them. My relief, too.
You mean Jackie?
I mean Jackie. Every time she relieves me, believe me, it's no relief. On my lunch hour today, I came back early just to see how she was getting along. Hi.
Hi.
Been busy?
So-so. I have to get a long-distance call for Mr. Bullard. Area code 404-760-4799. Mr. Frank Durant. 555-2368. Mr. Durant, Mr. Bullard calling.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I thought you'd like it.
I got to get a copy of that. You know, I was telling Gracious the other day, she and I and you and Dee Dee, we got to get together, and yes? Oh, Mr. Durant, how the Dan Tucker are you?
That man.
Now, Jackie. Simmer down.
One of these days he's going to lose an important call.
I know. Don't think I haven't thought of that, too.
I just hope he doesn't learn the hard way. Arrivederci.
See you. It was time for us to switch places again, so I didn't say anything more. But later, the roof fell in.
What happened?
Well, I'll tell you.
There we are. How's that?
Oh, pretty.
Brad likes this color. Well, go on. What were you saying?
Well, wait till you hear this. When I came back for my 3:10 break, Bullard was raising Cain. So I got Trudy to take the board, and then Jackie and I found a free office. She was like a time bomb. 10 seconds to 0. I wish you would light somewhere.
You know, every day I take that board, I tell myself I'm going to have the voice with a smile and the patience of Job. And then some of our own people. People who should know better. Oh, wasted time and frustration.
That's right.
Well?
Well, I happen to have a little philosophy about that. Would you like to hear it? You're going to hear it anyway. Now, whether they waste it or not, it's my time that they pay for. Problems? You're going to find problems in any job you take. But the point is that you just don't let them get you down.
Ha!
That is the mark of a professional. Now, my job is running a PBX board. And in my job, I consider myself a professional.
All right. But what about the wasted time and money for our company? Isn't anyone supposed to get mad about that? You know, I like to think I'm a little professional myself, and I might just think that the PBX bid is a little more important than some people seem to think. I bet half the sales our company makes come through our PBX. And the way we handle those calls plays a big part in getting that business.
You can say that again.
Oh, I've got a lot more to say. When I was in training for this job, I was told that even though we're not seen, on the phone we are the receptionist for our company. The invisible receptionist.
But that's the whole point, Jackie.
No, that's only part of it. The company works very hard to make a good impression for themselves. With each call I handle, I'm either adding to or taking away from that impression.
That's right.
But tell me, does the PBX attendant have to be the whole image?
Well, no, but...
When I plug in a call to Mr. Lovell or Mr. Bullard or someone else, aren't they part of that image, too? If they don't answer the phone properly and promptly, what kind of an impression is that?
You're right, Jackie. It's not good. You know it, and I know it. And fortunately, most of our extension users know it. Well, for the rest of them, let's just hope that they catch on pretty soon.
Can't we nudge them a little bit?
Well, we'll see. But right now, Jackie, what about Mr. Bullard's complaint that he did not get an important call this afternoon?
I'll tell you just what happened. You were on your break, and I was at the board. Lovell and Geddes.
I would like, please, to speak with Senor Bullard. This is Pierre Perrante from Caracas. Pierre Perrante, Caracas.
Thank you.
Espero que me hayan entendido.
Lavelle and Geddes. Mr. Ishimoto? I'm sorry, Mr. Ishimoto's line is busy. Would you care to wait? Thank you. I can give you Mr. Ishimoto now. Thank you for waiting.
Hello? Hello. I got cut off. Hello? I got cut off.
I'm sorry, sir.
I want to speak, please, with Senor Bullard. Is he there?
One moment, please.
I tell Senor Bullard I call him today, between 3 and 3:30.
Mr. Bullard does not answer. Would you like to leave a message?
No, no message. Just for an idea, who is the next lowest bidder?
The Quinn Ryan Company. There is only 3,000 bolívares difference.
No es mucha la diferencia. At least we will talk with them. What is their number?
Jackie, did I have a call? I was right here all the time. Who was it? Pierre Parenti. We gotta get him back. Where was he calling from?
He didn't say, sir. He just said no message and hung up.
Well, try and find him. Call the Venezuelan consulate. If they don't know where he is, try the hotels. But find Parenti.
Parenti? I took a call from a man named Parenti today.
Good afternoon, Quinn Ryan.
My name is Pierre Parenti. I do not know who I want to talk to. We have received in Caracas a bid from your company on a construction project.
Yes, that would probably be from Mr. Burton Quinn. I'll ring Mr. Quinn for you.
Thank you.
Now, please note, when Quinn's phone rings twice, Connie knows he isn't there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Parenti, but Mr. Quinn is out of his office. I'm trying to locate him for you.
Thank you. Suena muy simpática.
Then she sees a note her relief made. Mr. Quinn in drafting room.
Mr. Parenti, thank you for waiting. I've located Mr. Quinn. He'll be right with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Smart girl, this one.
You know, Julio, I think I give the job to these people.
Quinn speaking. Pierre Parenti?
Yes, sir. How do you do, Senor Quinn? I think we do business.
Fine.
Yo creo que dentro de 2 o 3 días nos podemos regresar a Caracas y todo sigue así.
I'm sure Mr. Quinn took care of Parenti, whatever it was he wanted. Oh, darn, I'm stuck.
You see, Connie doesn't know, probably never will know, that what Mr. Parenti wanted was to award a $500,000 contract. That's right, a $500,000 order. Now, who would you say really got that order? A lot of people worked on it. Salesmen, engineers, executives. But when it came right down to the moment of truth, one switchboard let the order dribble right through its fingers. Another switchboard caught it on the fly by being an invisible diplomat. You can't get much more important than that.
There you are.
Well, how do I look?
You look divine.
I sure hope Brad thinks so. Oops, there he is.
I'll get it.
Hello, Connie.
Hi.
Hi.
Brad, I'd like you to meet my roommate, Kelly Smith.
Hi, Brad.
How are you, Kelly?
Well, I'm ready.
Have a good time, you two.
We will, thank you.
Say, Brad, has anyone ever told you that you look like Gig Young?
Who?
Gig Young.
No, I never heard of him. But it was a lucky day for me when I called Quinn Ryan. You meet the nicest people on the telephone sometimes.
Oh, I wish I could get that message across to some people I know.
Well, I'll tell you what. Have them see this movie.
Well?
Here is the world, a world of mighty oceans, winding rivers, towering mountains, drifting deserts, deep forests. A world of beauty for the enjoyment of travelers everywhere. Whether you travel the high seas, wander your way over the broad highways, soar swiftly above the clouds, or roll along over shining ribbons of steel, the natural wonders of the world are waiting for you. And yet, no matter where you are, home is never far away. Yes, today this exciting world, filled with romance, adventure, and nature's masterpieces, is waiting for you to enjoy. The natural, unspoiled beauty of the White Mountains, land of evergreens and crystal clear lakes. In the deep woods, soft shadows curl their ways, and earth and sky mingle in a colorful rhapsody. There is endless appeal in nature's ever wonderful moods, delightful moods which often bring thoughts of others far away.
Long distance, please. I'd like to place a call to New Orleans, Louisiana.
This is my nicest birthday present. Oh, you've made me so happy.
Happiness abounds, too, in the gaiety of Mardi Gras, old world tradition of old New Orleans. Fun and festival reign supreme, and parades are everywhere. In this charming city, rich in legend, there is transplanted a bit of the old world, where travelers may wander amid buildings of quaint architecture, monuments to a glorious past, softly colored by more than 2 centuries of history. Truly a glimpse of Europe in an American setting. In Washington, D.C., history in the making is an everyday process. This is a city of monumental buildings and national shrines. A Mecca revered by people from all over the world and by people in all walks of life. But the lure of travel is always present, no matter where your home may be. For far-off vacation lands are always more inviting.
Yes, Mr. Benton?
Oh, Miss Stevens, please check on my reservation at the Lazy X Ranch, will you?
Right away, sir.
Yes, ma'am, we have Mr. Benton's reservation. Yes, the whole family. Oh, we'll make them mighty comfortable. Yes, ma'am, the scenery is mighty pretty this time of the year. Thank you. Goodbye.
Mighty pretty in this wilderness of beauty. Wherever you may go, the majestic works of nature abound. Oregon, where thundered the wheels of the covered wagons of pioneers of long ago, where the mighty Columbia River rolls to the Pacific Ocean, where the forest-clad Cascade Mountains reach to the sky, and evergreen forest corridors lead to the towering queen of the snow-capped peaks, Mount Hood. Wherever you are, thoughts of home bring thrills of pleasure.
We're having a family party on our wedding anniversary, John. It would be so nice if you could be with us. Love, Sis.
And thoughts of home bring pleasure and happiness to those we remember.
All right. Goodbye, John. Wasn't it nice of John to call?
Yes, a few spoken words from the depths of an Oregon forest flashing across the nation to Florida made happiness complete in a home in old St. Augustine. This historic old city, over which the flags of 3 countries have flown, reflects the glamour of the past. Landmarks centuries old, recalling the glory of a bygone day, still stand serenely beautiful. The legendary Fountain of Youth still lures the passerby to taste the waters thought to possess miraculous powers. The quiet charm and serene beauty of this quaint old city still bring pleasure to all who travel the road of scenic adventure. London, mother of parliaments. London, city of the ages, centuries old. London, home of Big Ben. Yet, London, too, is but seconds away.
Yes. Yes. Fine, Charles. Sounds to me like a capital idea. I'll fly over tonight and I'll meet you in New York tomorrow. Cheerio.
Voices spanning the Atlantic link the old world with the new. New York. Roaring metropolis of the 20th century, crossroads of commerce and industry for the world, offers the thrill of a lifetime, as exciting as the sheer walls of mighty windswept canyons of natural wonder. Once only a rocky, forest-clad island, New York today offers a panorama as breathtaking as can be seen any place in the world. A lasting memory of man-made spectacle that spreads as far as the eye can see. Busy city with its teeming millions, New York, too, keeps the world at its fingertips. City and countryside are linked by a network of wires and cables and voice pathways through the air. Here is truly an international crossroads, where pass the voices of many lands on their way to the far corners of the world. Is it Rio, Santiago, Reykjavik, or Quito you are calling? Or is it an ocean liner you want, 1,000 miles at sea? Well, all these far-off places are at your fingertips. For wherever you may be, or wherever you go, you can have the world at your call.
Once upon a time, or maybe it should be twice upon a time, because this story begins where most stories end. There was a bit of excitement up on Cloud 7. On this particular morning, the head angel had called a conference to talk about Jeff and Mary. And their guardian angel, Wilbur, was late.
Where is Wilbur? I've sent every cherub in the place out to look for him.
Hi, fellas. Let's get this show on the road.
It's already on the road.
I'm sorry, Chief. We got so many new clients, we'll have to open a new branch office.
These clients are your immediate concern, if you want to keep your license.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Chief.
Marriages are made in heaven, but there's follow-up work, too. Jeff and Mary have been married for a year, and they haven't had a real honeymoon yet.
But everything's under control. They're starting on their honeymoon today.
That's what they think, too. But they're going to find out differently, unless you get down there right away and take care of things.
Something's come up.
Something is coming up in exactly 30 seconds. Now get going.
Yes, sir, Chief. Geronimo!
Wilbur! Oh, Wilbur!
Yes, Chief?
Wilbur, make yourself invisible.
Oh, I almost forgot. I'm sorry, Chief, but I've got to get organized. Besides, no one can see me up here. Yes, sir. Right, Chief.
Everything?
Everything, including you.
Well, let's go then. Hello.
Jeff, this is Gordon.
Oh, hello, Gordon. And goodbye, Gordon. Mary and I are just leaving.
Now, wait a minute. Something's come up.
It can't come up. When I finished the score for the show, you said I could take Mary on our honeymoon. We've waited a year now, and we're going.
Now, hold on, Jeff. It's Sonia. Her wishing number. The words are okay, but she doesn't care much about the music. If we don't have a new tune by tomorrow morning, she's not going to sign for the show.
Look, Gordon, rehearsals don't start for 4 weeks yet, and we're on our honeymoon.
Now, listen, Jeff. If you don't come up with that new music, there won't be any show and there won't be any honeymoon. Now, you can write a new melody in 24 hours. It's no problem at all. You must have at least a dozen old tunes lying around.
The wishing song?
No problem at all.
No inspiration, darling?
I couldn't write The Farmer in the Dill today. That temperamental ballerina, I'd like
Take
to...
it easy. Look, it's way past dinner time and you haven't eaten lunch yet.
I'm not hungry.
I'll fix some coffee. Yes?
Hello, Mary?
Yes, Sonia.
You tell Jeffrey, the dear boy, that I love his words. But I want more wishing in the wishing song.
You're absolutely right. He couldn't agree with you more. He's working on it right now. It's almost finished. Goodbye.
I wish I had a castle in the sky. Away up high where bluebirds like to fly. A cozy little castle with 100 rooms or more.
Oh, dear. Someday.
With stars for windows, clouds for rugs, a rainbow for a door. I wish...
I just wish I had a decent kitchen.
I wish the faucet wouldn't drip all day. I wish that refrigerator door would close and stay closed. I wish I had a stove whose pilot light was always lit.
Furthermore,
a kitchen phone at hand when friends call up to chat a bit. Hello, yes, this is Mary. How are you? Bye.
They say your kitchen dazzles every eye.
A brand new sink, a built-in oven, a new refrigerator, and a phone. A kitchen phone, a bright red phone. I gotta go. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. I'll call you later. I wish my living room were all redone. New drapes, new rugs, oh, this is fun. It's nice to have a telephone to blend with my new drapes and rugs. A living room that's all our own. The bedroom should be changed completely too. Perhaps a color scheme of gold and blue. New furniture and lots of room for all my clothes. On second thought, I might try Dusty Rose. Lady likes to have a chance to change her mind. I might like a yellow room with turquoise and white, and maybe a telephone that lights up at night. I wish I may, I wish I might.
Hello? Hello? They hung up.
It was probably Gordon sitting there like a vulture. Call him back. Maybe I'll have him in a day or two, but not tonight. I haven't got one idea left to rub against tonight.
His line's busy.
Well, try it again. If he and Sonia can't wait, I don't care what they do.
Why
don't we call him later?
No. Now.
All right.
Wait a minute, do that again. Yeah. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Again, do it again. It works.
Good. Hello. Oh, hello, Gordon.
I've been trying to get Jeff. Sonia's here. How's it coming?
Wonderful. You want to hear something?
You bet. I'll turn on the speakerphone. I want Sonia to hear it.
Fine. Listen to this.
I wish I had a castle in the sky away up where the bluebirds fly. A castle with the sky full of bright shining stars for windows, clouds for rugs, a rainbow for a door. I wish I had a castle in the sky where we could watch the world go by with silver from the moonlight and gold from the sun in our own, just our own wishing castle in the sky.
I love it. Such rhythm, such spirit, such departure.
That's it, kids. Bring it in, Jeff, and go on your honeymoon.
Chief, this is Wilbur. Mission accomplished. I'll be right up. Right.
Each of us has experienced moments when we've wanted to reach someone fast. Often we just couldn't wait to share good news with family or friends. Or on especially busy days, it seemed like there just weren't enough hours in the day. We tried to make every second count. Then, once in a while, an emergency comes up. It can happen any time. And when it does, seconds can make a crucial difference. So whether we're happy, busy, or in need of emergency help, we all need speedy, mistake-proof dialing, and so do our customers. Well, Western Electric has found an answer to this problem. It's called the Touch-O-Matic 12. These are the Touch-O-Matic 12s. They can dial any of 12 pre-recorded numbers at the touch of a single button. And since you touch only one button, it's incredibly fast. And because the number is pre-recorded, you won't make a dialing error. As you can see, the Touch-O-Matic 12 is sleek and attractive, a nice addition to any home or office decor. It's available in the same colors as our trimline phones. While the Touch-O-Matic 12 has been especially designed for our residence customers, you'll find that many business customers will want them as well. The TAM-12 will not work, however, on a key system. Residents and business customers will find this new dialer to be reasonably priced. It's connected by the customer himself, so there's no installation charge. Just a one-time only special equipment charge and a low monthly fee. For that fee, our customers receive a compact and versatile unit. It can be used with any modular single-line desk set, including design line phones, and can be moved from one phone to another without losing the recorded memory. And because the TAM-12 is a genuine Bell product, built into it is the same high quality that keeps our phones working year after year. Should a problem occur with the Touch-O-Matic 12, it is covered by the traditional Bell lifetime maintenance guarantee. Part of the convenience of the TAM-12 is the ease with which the customer can connect and program it himself. Let me show you what I mean. First, disconnect the telephone cord from the base of the telephone set. Then remove the battery cover from the bottom of the Touch-O-Matic 12. Take the line that you disconnected from the phone set and put it into the socket marked line at the base of the dialer. The small plastic hook will hold this cord in place. Then take one end of the TAM-12 cord and plug it into the socket at the base of the telephone set. Take the other end of the TAM-12 cord and plug it into the socket marked phone at the base of the dialer. This cord is also held in place by the small plastic hook. Next, connect the battery by snapping on the connections like this. Then insert the battery like so. By the way, the TAM-12 comes with this regular 9-volt alkaline battery. It should last for about 1 year. After that, the customers replace the batteries themselves. They will know the battery is weak when they press a recorded number button and the normal series of beeps cannot be heard. The old battery will serve to retain the memory of program numbers, but it should be replaced as soon as possible because when the battery goes completely dead, all the numbers will have to be re-recorded. During replacement, the numbers will be kept for the short period it takes to put the new battery in. With the battery in position, replace the battery cover by sliding it in and snapping it into place. The dialer is now connected. Simple, isn't it? Customers just take it home and plug it in. Recording numbers into the dialer is even easier. The first step in recording is to list the names and numbers to be called. Remove the faceplate from the top of the dialer and take the directory sheet out. Write on the directory sheet the names and numbers to be called. The TAM-12 comes with special color code dots. These are used to highlight certain numbers, for instance, red for the fire department. Simply place a dot next to the number to be highlighted. The directory sheet is erasable and can be used over and over. Now replace the directory sheet on the face of the dialer, and you're ready to begin recording. First, depress and release the record on-off button at the top of the dialer. You'll hear a constant tone. Remember, the tone is coming from the dialer, not from the telephone set. Next, press the numbered button next to the directory position where you have written the number you want to record. Now record the telephone number into the dialer by dialing the phone number using the dialer buttons. For example, let's say you're using button number 1. At that position, you've already written the word fire. Remember, begin by pressing the record on-off button and then the position 1 button. Next, dial in the correct telephone number for the fire department. Let's say it's 555-1622. You will hear a beep for each digit. Now press the record on-off button once again to end the recording process. In order to enter further numbers, simply repeat this procedure for each number. By the way, recorded numbers can be changed at any time, even while talking on the phone. The other person won't hear a thing. Having completed the directory sheet, I now want to change a recorded number. Erase the old name and number from the directory sheet and write in the new. Then record the new number on the dialer. The old number will automatically be replaced by the new one, even if the new number has fewer or more digits. If you wish to remove a number from memory without entering a new one, simply press the record on-off button. Depress the button next to the number you wish to remove, and then press the record on-off button again. When you've completed the recording process, replace the faceplate cover. As you can see, the bottom notch of the cover fits into the dialer. By flexing the cover plate, you can guide it into the top notch, allowing it to snap into place. The faceplate protects against accidentally hitting the record on-off button and erasing numbers. Now that we've connected and programmed the Touch-O-Matic 12, let's take a look at the ways in which it can serve our customers. And let's talk about who these customers are likely to be. Well, for one thing, our studies indicate that customers with higher than average telephone bills are likely to want a Touch-O-Matic 12. These customers tend to have 2 or more premium phones and have annual incomes of over $25,000. Secondary interest in the Touch-O-Matic 12 is likely to come from those customers with incomes between $10,000 and $25,000. These customers usually have one traditional phone in the home. This information is given you to help you size up potential customers, but by no means limit yourself to these categories. After all, with its speed and convenience, the TAM-12 could appeal to almost anyone. Now let's take a look at those customers who may find the TAM-12 useful based on product benefits. For the parents of small children, single button dialing can be especially useful. Emergency buttons can be pointed out to a babysitter, as well as a number where the parents can be reached that day or evening. The sitter can reach both parents and emergency services in seconds. I might add that even small children can be taught to dial quickly, using the color dots on the faceplate for recognition. The TAM-12 could be a lifesaver for elderly or disabled people who may have difficulty dialing a regular telephone set. By touching one button, these customers are in touch with the help they need. By the same token, friends or family of such people can use the Touch-O-Matic 12 as a speedy and convenient method of checking to make sure that everything is all right. And for busy people, the Touch-O-Matic 12 is a valuable tool. Customers who are active in community organizations often call numbers on a frequent basis. The TAM-12 will allow them to do so in a speedy and efficient way. Professional, technical, and small business people must make calls frequently, and this new dialer represents a low-cost way for them to add speed and efficiency to their daily activities. By the way, since it can record up to 16 digits in each of the memory positions, customers who make frequent long-distance calls will find the Touch-O-Matic 12 to be particularly useful. Then, of course, there are those customers who express annoyance with having to remember telephone numbers, repeatedly dial wrong numbers, or complain about the time it takes to place a call. Well, this is it, the Touch-O-Matic 12. It's inexpensive, easy to install, and simple to use. Once in place, it adds a measure of security and convenience that will appeal to a broad range of our customers. It's a good product, and frankly, we're proud of it. Let's tell our customers that.
That's no way to answer the phone, Susie. Hello, Matthew's residence. This is Jimmy. Just a minute, please. Uncle Bill, Captain Adams wants to talk to you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Hi, Captain. This is Bill. No, we don't usually have ducks answer the phone. That one belongs to Susie. My niece and nephew are visiting me, and I promised to take them on a picnic. Oh? You need that posted today?
If it doesn't stop, there won't be any picnic.
We don't... The thing...
Cracker likes it? Yeah, it's great weather for ducks.
Oh, sure. Glad to do it. Bye. Captain Adams wants this poster I've done for him delivered to him at police headquarters today. I'll drop it off on our way to the park. Good thing I got that phone call. If he hadn't reached me, I wouldn't have gotten it to him on time.
I never thought about that, Uncle Bill.
You never thought about what?
What did people do before the telephone was invented? How did they get messages to each other in a hurry?
Well, while we're waiting for the rain to stop, let's see if we can't find out By playing make-believe.
Oh, good. That sounds like fun.
Now, here's our friend. We'll call him, Mr. Man. He's going to take us back thousands of years, way before telephones or televisions or Telstar.
He looks a little like you, Uncle Bill.
He looks a little like all of us, Jimmy. You ready, Mr. Man? Man has played many parts during the years he has lived on Earth. So let's make believe we're going back in time.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago?
That's right. When man lived in caves and hunted for their food.
Found a herd of buffalo.
At last, meat for supper.
Run and tell the others to bring weapons, or else supper will run away.
The only way Mr. Caveman knew how to get a message from one place to another was to send a runner. As civilization grew, man's way of life changed. But he still used runners to send messages. The Egyptians used runners. It took 2 days for a Greek runner to bring the news of a great victory.
He is getting tired.
He discovered he could ride horses. The Romans used horses. So did the knights.
That's a Pony Express rider.
That's right. But man wanted to send messages faster than a runner or horse could travel.
He's sending an Indian smoke signal.
Right. But only the simplest messages could be sent this way. And none at all if it rained. He learned to use flashing mirrors by daylight and blinking lights when it was dark.
He couldn't send messages very far that way, could he?
No, Jimmy, he couldn't. But man has always been able to solve his problems by inventing new things.
That's a telegraph message.
Yes. About 125 years ago, Samuel Morse invented the telegraph, a way to send code messages over an electric wire. The code was made by using different clicks for each letter of the alphabet. First message sent over 40 miles of wire was, "What hath God wrought?" The telegraph was, and still is, wonderful. But Mr. Man wanted to send his voice over a distance, to carry on a real conversation. Then in 1876, a man named Alexander Graham Bell found a way. He invented the telephone.
Hey, that's your phone, Uncle Bill. Hello, Matthew's residence. This is Jimmy.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Yes, we got here before the rain started. Uncle Bill's going to take us on a picnic if it lets up.
Fine.
We're playing make-believe. I'll tell you about it when we get home.
Good.
Okay, Mom. Bye. What are you doing, Susie?
She wanted to hear the voice going through the wire.
You can't hear voices in the wire.
Well, how does it work? How'd your mother's voice get in the phone?
That's simple. That's funny. I don't know. I never thought about it before. We were talking as if we were in the same room. How does the telephone work, Uncle Bill?
Magic?
No, not magic, Susie, but science. Science of sound waves and electricity.
How do they work?
We'll let Mr. Man show us. We'll pretend now he's a musician. All sounds come from a movement of the air, back and forth, like waves.
I don't see any waves.
See the string move back and forth?
I have seen strings and rubber bands move back and forth, but I've never seen a sound wave.
Well, you can't really see them, you hear them. But if you could see them, they'd look like this. Different kinds of sounds make different kinds of sound waves. A low sound makes a different wave than a high sound.
the wrong note.
You see, people's voices make sound waves too. When we speak, air from our lungs moves vocal cords like these in our throats.
Hey, Rudolph!
This movement makes sound waves and sends them out of our mouths.
Hey! Hey!
When sound waves reach the ear of another person, they make the drum in his ear move back and forth, and he hears the sound the other person is making.
I see. But how do you hear over the telephone?
We're coming to that. When Mr. Mann speaks into the telephone, the flow of electricity in the wires makes it possible for the other person to hear what Mr. Mann is saying, just as quick as a flash.
But how?
Well, when he has dialed his friend, and his friend Rudolph answers, the flow of electricity in the wires connects Mr. Mann's telephone through the telephone building to his friend's phone.
Oh.
Rudolph!
Mr. Mann's vocal cords make sound waves which go into the mouthpiece of the telephone. These sound waves make the electricity flow stronger and weaker, depending on the sound waves his voice makes. Remember now that the flow of electricity is changing from strong to weak as it comes from Mr. Mann's telephone. These changes work on the receiver very much the way sound works on your eardrum. The electricity makes a little metal plate vibrate. This vibration makes sound waves come out of the receiver. And so, in a split second, the person on the other end of the line hears the same words Mr. Mann is speaking. And what he hears sounds just like Mr. Mann's voice.
Rudolph! I said that's the wrong note.
Susie, you shouldn't play around with the telephone. Somebody may be trying to... You see? Somebody was trying to call us. Bill Matthews. Would you repeat that slowly, sir? Well, you must have the wrong number. What number are you calling?
It's Mabel over there.
Well, not so loud.
Oh, excuse me. Doesn't Mabel Noble live there?
I'm sorry, but this is 555-3759. I shouldn't lose my temper, even when people roar into the telephone at me.
Always talking.
It's a good thing animals don't talk on the telephone.
Say, let's pretend we're at a talking animal circus. Mr. Mann can be the ringmaster.
Sounds like fun.
There we are.
May I draw his whip?
Sure.
Whiskers?
Here. All set, Mr. Mann?
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the greatest, the most sensational talking animal act the world has ever heard. Introducing the lion and the mynah bird.
Miss Myrtle Minor Bird speaking.
How are you?
Please don't roar at me.
What did the lion do wrong, Jimmy?
You don't have to shout into the telephone to be heard.
That's right. Just use your normal speaking voice and speak directly into the mouthpiece.
Sorry, Myrtle.
Presenting the impatient squirrel and the sleepy bear.
Watch, Jimmy. When you dial, you should make sure you bring your finger all the way around to the finger stop. Then for each number, let the dial go all the way back by itself. Each number, all the way. Then let go. See?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Now I wonder who that was. Yeah.
He waited too long.
Right. He waited too long to answer. But if you're the person making the call, you should let the phone ring 8 to 10 times. See? Both of them are disappointed.
And now, the preposterous pachyderms. In other words, elephants.
So like I said, I wanted to invite you to a party.
Smarty? Who are you calling a smarty?
No, I said I'm giving a party at my house.
Mouse? Don't you call me a mouse.
What is the matter, Jimmy?
Hello?
I know. It's important to speak clearly on the phone so the other person can understand what you're saying.
Right again, Jimmy.
And now, for our grand finale, the gossipy piggy and the fed-up fox.
Well, guess who was there? Betty. So I said to her, well, how is it every time I go to a sale, I run into you? It's just the funniest thing. Oh.
Excuse me, lady, but I've been waiting to make an important call for 25 minutes.
But I simply must tell Irma about my new hat. Well, now, as I was saying before I was interrupted,
It's selfish and impolite to hog the phone. Somebody may be waiting to use it or trying to call your house.
Gee, that was fun. I hope nobody's being selfish on Bobby's phone. I'll call him to see if he's coming on the picnic.
The telephone book is very helpful. Our friends are in it, like Robert Martin. Our doctor is in it.
The television repairman, the bicycle shop.
Then in this little book, I write down the numbers of people I call often. You should have one too, Jimmy. Saves a lot of time to keep the phone numbers of people you call often. Like your friend Bobby.
Oh, yes. Hey, look, the sun's out. Now we can go on our picnic. Hooray! I'll try to call Bobby again.
Well, tell him to meet us in front of the police station at 2:30. That way we can drop off the poster for Captain Adams.
All right. Hello, Mrs. Martin. This is Jimmy Matthews. May I please speak to Bobby? Thank you. Hi, Bobby. Listen, we'll meet you in front of the police station at 2:30. Don't forget to bring your ball and glove.
Hi, Tom.
Hi there.
Children, this is Captain Adams.
Hello, Captain Adams.
How are you today?
Fine.
I want to be a policeman when I grow up.
She wants to be everything when she grows up.
Here's the emergency poster you wanted.
Thanks.
I think Jimmy and Susie would like to know how valuable the telephone is in emergencies.
Good. You come inside for a minute and I'll show you. Now, the telephone helps us because it lets us know right away when we're needed and how, when, and where we can help people.
How would I call the police if I needed them?
This poster your uncle made will show you how. We want to use this to show children how to get help. In an emergency, you dial 0 to get the telephone operator. Be sure you hear the dial tone first. Remember?
Yes, sir.
A 0 is the last hole on the dial. Now see? Be sure you bring the dial all the way around to the stop. Then remove your finger and let the dial go back. Now you dial 0 once, and the operator will answer.
Then what?
Then you say, I want a policeman, please, and the operator will connect you with the police station. Now, when somebody, like the sergeant here, answers, you tell him who you are, where you are, and why you're calling the police.
Police station, Sergeant Evers.
My Linda's lost.
Oh, that's too bad. May I have your name and address, please?
Mrs. Jane Hoskins.
Mm-hmm.
42 Barton.
And your phone number?
555-1029.
How old is Linda?
5.
5.
Yes.
Where did you see her last?
In our front yard.
And how long has she been missing?
Half hour.
And what was she wearing?
A sort of strawberry pink dress and a yellow cotton sweater.
A pink dress and a yellow sweater. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mrs. Hoskins. Don't worry. We'll find her and let you know as soon as we do.
Oh, hurry.
Yes, ma'am. Goodbye.
Thanks, Sergeant. Now, see how careful we are to write everything down? Pardon me.
Yes, sir.
Get out an all points bulletin. 5-year-old girl lost. Linda Hoskins. Last seen on Elm Street. Here's a description.
Sarge, this is Officer Jensen, 6th and Elm Street. That's what I'm calling you about. She was all alone, looking in a toy store window. Oh, sure, she's fine.
Good work, Officer Jensen. We'll have a car over to pick her up right away.
See how the telephone helps us do our job? Call Mrs. Hoskins and tell her we found her little girl. Over here at the window, I want to show you something. There it is, the telephone building. In many ways, it ties the community together. When you dial a number, this equipment inside the telephone building automatically connects you with the person you're calling, whether he's across the street or miles and miles away. Thousands and thousands of calls go through here every day.
This is Riley's Dairy. We need 50 pounds of butter.
50 pounds of butter.
And 1 crate of large eggs.
We'll deliver it today.
This is Mrs. Lee, Doctor. When can I bring Tommy in for his checkup?
Let me see. How about Tuesday, 4 o'clock?
That will be fine.
Marletti's Garage, Joe speaking.
This is Les Perkins. My produce truck's broken down. I don't know what's the matter.
Oh, where are you?
Highway 26 near Maple Avenue.
Okay, Les. I'll be right out.
Linda's mother asked me to stay for lunch. May I?
All right, Maria, but be home by 3 o'clock.
I will.
That shipment gone to Plainview yet?
Not yet, Carl. We're loading it now.
Good. Listen, Jess, they just called. They want 3 more cartons of soap.
Okay, Carl.
But telephone service wouldn't be complete without people to handle special calls and emergencies. Let's hear what the operators are saying.
Mr. Hanson, please. Long distance calling. I'm sorry, the line is busy. I'll keep trying and call you. Mr. Marco, I'm ready on your call to Honolulu. I'll connect you with the fire department. On your call to Sunnyside, Mr. McCarthy will be back in an hour. Will you talk with anyone else? Thank you.
The fire department needs the telephone as much as we do.
I'm sure of that. Well, thanks a lot, Captain.
Not at all. Thank you for bringing the poster. Have fun, everyone.
Goodbye. It's after 2:30. I wonder where Bobby is.
I'm sure you'll be here soon.
Like Quacker.
Jet plane flies a lot higher and faster than Quacker.
Can telephones reach up into the sky?
They can and they do. And even more amazing, men are working with communication satellites that orbit the Earth. These satellites can carry telephone messages and television pictures to and from many different parts of the world.
And outer space?
Yes, Jimmy, outer space too. Man himself has entered space.
All systems go. A-OK.
Why, it's Mr. Man.
Yes. And just think, Jimmy and Susie, someday in the future you may pick up a telephone and soon be talking with your friend, even if he's on the moon.
When do we go, Uncle Bill?
Pretty soon.
Hey, Jimmy! Here he comes.
Jimmy. I couldn't find my glove. That's okay, Bobby. Let's go.